Chapter 29-27. Tanyu's voice was sharp and painful to the extreme. Originally she was afraid because of Su Xiaoxiao's words. Before she could beg for mercy from Su Xiaoxiao, Sima Ju's poisonous fog had already wrapped around her body, making her so painful that she couldn't even beg for mercy. She could only desperately roll on the ground. 10,000 poison body, 10,000 poison power. As long as Sima Ju was willing, he could completely make Tanyu wander on the edge of death, never to be free. After his poisonous fog wrapped around Tanyu, Ling Tianhan's face was cold. He raised his hand and cut off the rotten flesh on Tanyu's body piece by piece. After Sima Ju's poisonous fog corroded Tanyu, it didn't corrode her sense of pain. Not only that, Tanyu's sense of pain became more sensitive and sharp because of the poisonous fog. Under such circumstances, Ling Tianhan's every strike was like a stab to her heart. It was so painful that she screamed in agony. At this time Tanyu was completely regretting. How could she be so stupid to attack Luo Qingtong and the others? The other party's strength was so strong, she was so stupid to offend them with just a few words from Mo Zhuling. Tanyu's scream was heart-wrenching. But Luo Qingtong's eyes didn't have the slightest trace of emotion. Tanyu's end was completely brought on by her own actions. Her end was tragic, but she didn't expect that Su Yu and the others would be treated like this after she sold the Qin family of highest heaven. The status of the slaves bought from the Dark Arena in the Qin family of highest heaven was probably not even comparable to ordinary low-level slaves. Not to mention Su Yu and the others, if they didn't deal with it properly, it would be a tragic end. Compared to this, what was so tragic about Tanyu's end? She should even be glad that Luo Qingtong didn't do it herself. Otherwise, the pain and torture she suffered would be far worse than Su Xiaoxiao and the others. After all, Luo Xanning and Yuan Shui were examples. Luo Qingtong never showed mercy to her enemies. And she wasn't stingy with her methods, letting them know who they should provoke and who they shouldn't. Don't kill them. Luo Qingtong's voice was cold, her eyes cold. Wait until we find Su Yu and the others. If Su Yu and the others had any mishap because of this, she wanted them to be skinned and pulled, their tendons and their souls to be destroyed. And when her voice sounded, the people's hearts to the extreme, their hearts trembled, their faces to the extreme of despair. They didn't expect that because of Tanyu's selfishness, the people of the Dark Arenas Tuzazes. Thinking about it, if anything happened to Su Yu and the others, most likely, their end would not be much better than Tanyu's. The peoples of their hearts is of their hearts. If they knew that the strength behind Luo Qingtong was so powerful, they wouldn't have done anything to the other party. Not only that, they would have tied Tanyu and the others up in front of Luo Qingtong and made them kneel and repent. It was too late to say anything now. Elder Mao looked at Tanyu's eyes. It was as if he wanted to eat her alive. If it weren't for this granddaughter, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Just when the people's hearts were filled with regret and despair, a voice snapped at this time. Chapter 29-28. As the voice rang out, a middle-aged man with a fierce aura stepped into the dark-colored arena's reception hall. Behind him was a group of dark-colored arena's higher-ups with a fierce aura. These people were incomparable to the dark-colored arena's higher-ups in the reception hall. Every one of them was comparable to Elder Mao in strength. Obviously, they were the dark-colored arena's elite higher-ups, the founding elders. These people's auras and strengths were extremely powerful. The middle-aged man who stepped into the reception hall first had an aura and strength above them. He seemed to be at the peak of the 9th level Purple Venerable Realm and was about to break through to the human martial realm. Such a person was definitely a top-level expert in a 9-star region like the Star Wilderness region. His strength was even stronger than Elder Mao's. At this moment he was looking at Luo Qingtong and the others in anger, as well as the dark-colored arena's higher-ups who were kneeling on the ground and couldn't even stand up. They were completely suppressed by Chu Tiany's power and aura. His expression was cold as he yelled angrily, "Bastards, what are you doing? How dare you disgrace our dark-colored arena?" The dark-colored arena's owner's expression was cold. Chu Tiany's strength was extremely powerful, far beyond his detection range. Therefore, even though he felt that the dark-colored arena's people's expressions and postures were strange, the dark-colored arena's owner didn't think much of it. He only thought that Luo Qingtong and the others came to make trouble, and his people were afraid of offending the Star Alliance, so they deliberately tolerated and even knelt to the other party. Not only that, but they also allowed the other party to abuse and torture his people in his territory. The dark-colored arena's owner looked at Tanyu, who was almost tortured beyond recognition, with an extremely ugly and angry expression. Good, good, good. You came to our dark-colored arena to make trouble and tortured my people like this. Elder Fong. What do you have to say about this? As he spoke, the figures of Elder Fong and the others flashed out from behind the dark-colored arena's higher-ups. It turned out that they didn't come alone. Instead, they brought along Elder Fong and the others from the Star Alliance. In fact, the owner of the Dark Colors was discussing something with Elder Fong of the Star Alliance. Everyone was discussing how to form an alliance. The owner of the dark-colored arena wanted to borrow the power of Elder Fong and the others to develop his dark-colored arena in the Star Wilderness more quickly. Elder Fong and the others also wanted to borrow the other party's strength to deal with the Star Alliance's leader and the others. After Mo Zhuling's series of manipulations, the latter's reputation and status in the Star Alliance had already fallen to the lowest point. The members of the Star Alliance, who had always obeyed the orders of the Star Alliance's leader, had a strong sense of doubt. Elder Fong and the others were preparing to further undermine the prestige of the Star Alliance's leader, which required the support of external forces. However, before they could settle the matter, the people in the dark-colored arena received news that Luo Qingtong and the others had gone to the dark-colored arena to make trouble. This news was naturally spread by Tanyu. She had already made up her mind to blame Su Yu and the others. Not only that, she also wanted Luo Qingtong and the others to leave in an extremely embarrassing manner. Therefore, when she knew that Luo Qingtong and the others were coming to take back Su Yu and the others, she sent someone to secretly send a letter to the dark-colored arena's owner and the others, telling them to hurry back as soon as possible. Chapter 29-29. However, at this moment, seeing them rush back, the faces of Tanyu and the other upper echelons of the dark-colored arena revealed ash-white expressions of extreme despair and fear. Because they were all suppressed by Chu Tiany's power, none of them could speak. At this time, the dark-colored arena master looked at their faces and thought that they were terrified and desperate because of his reprimand. His voice became even colder. You still have the face to be afraid in front of me? A group of shameless things. You actually kneel in front of others. As his words came out, Tanyu and the others' faces became even more desperate. They didn't want to kneel. They didn't have a choice. In addition, Arena Master, you should leave quickly. This Luo Qingtong was a monster. She had an extremely terrifying powerhouse by her side. How could Tanyu and the others not think that Luo Qingtong was a monster? It had to be known that the person following Luo Qingtong was most likely a high-level human martial realm powerhouse. Such a powerhouse was actually following Luo Qingtong like a servant, prioritizing her safety and only obeying her orders. They shuddered just thinking about it. They simply couldn't imagine how Luo Qingtong was able to do this. As their faces trembled with despair, Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She looked at Elder Fong and the others. It's you? She chuckled. Luo Qingtong and Elder Fong didn't have direct dealings with each other. But indirectly, she had heard Su Xiaoxiao mention Elder Fong and the others many times. She knew that they stood on the side of True Spill Continent and were very good to Su Xiaoxiao. They wholeheartedly protected the people of True Spill Continent. Therefore, her attitude towards them was very gentle. She wasn't as cold as she was towards the people of the dark-colored arena. When Elder Fong and the others arrived behind the dark-colored arena master and the others, they saw Luo Qingtong and the others. Their faces were full of horror and surprise. They were surprised that Luo Qingtong and the others appeared here, and the situation here was extremely strange. They were horrified that Luo Qingtong had returned. This young girl was placed at the apex of the young emperor's heart. She was the focus of Elder Fong and the others. It could be said that they were so good to Su Xiaoxiao and the others because they were Luo Qingtong's trusted followers. And now, Luo Qingtong was right in front of them, not to mention her. Immediately, the group of people hurriedly came up to greet them. However, at this moment, the Dark Arena Master's voice rang out. Elder Fong, you have seen the situation-colored arena. The people on my side are disappointing, so I won't say anything about it. But this Luo Qingtong and her True Spill Continent people actually dared to cause trouble in our dark color arena. I would like to ask, are you the ones who instigated this from behind? If that's the case, then let's forget about the matter we discussed today. The dark-colored arena master's face was cold. He looked at the scene in front of him and felt that he had lost all face. Although Luo Qingtong's sudden appearance was very strange, he knew that Su Yu and the others had come to fulfill their promise to Luo Qingtong. He also guessed that Luo Qingtong's appearance was related to Su Yu and the others. Chapter 29-30. But even so, it was their dark-colored arena's fault. The dark-colored arena's arena master would never allow Luo Qingtong and the others to make trouble in his territory. Otherwise, where would the dark-colored arena's dignity go? Not to mention that these people were actually forcing the higher-ups of the dark-colored arena to kneel down in their own territory. If this wasn't relying on the power of the Star Alliance's Elder Fong and the others, what else could it be? And the people on his side were really disappointing. They were so scared that they knelt down. It was simply a disgrace to him. The dark-colored arena's arena master's face was ugly. Chu Tiany's power created an illusion, making him think that everyone in the dark-colored arena was kneeling down voluntarily. And Elder Mao, who was kneeling in the middle of the crowd with his legs broken, was completely blocked by the higher-ups of the dark-colored arena because of his angle of view. He wasn't seen by anyone. Therefore, the dark-colored arena's arena master's tone was so stiff and cold. When his voice sounded, Tan Yu and the others' faces became even more distorted and desperate. They wanted to tell the dark-colored arena's arena master that no matter what he was talking about with Elder Fong and the others, he should try his best to meet their demands. Only then would they have a chance to live. Their faces contorted with all their might, but under the pressure of Chu Tiany's power, they couldn't say anything. When Elder Fong and the others heard the dark-colored arena's arena master's words, their faces suddenly changed. It wasn't for anything else. The dark-colored arena's arena master's words were very obvious. He was asking them if they wanted to protect Luo Qingtong and the others. If they did, then the things they had just discussed would be nullified. Not only that, the dark-colored arena's arena master would most likely take the contents of the things they discussed to the Star Alliance's Alliance Master and the others. At that time, Elder Fong and the rest would be questioned by the evidence presented by the Star Alliance Master. Their great advantage would be gone forever. Not only that, they might even become the target of public criticism in the Star Alliance. Everyone's faces were extremely ugly. On the other hand, the dark-colored arena master's expression was extremely arrogant and cold. He didn't believe that Elder Fong and the others didn't understand what he was implying. He was waiting for Elder Fong to abandon Luo Qingtong and the others. At that time, he would like to see how these people would be arrogant in front of him. The arena master of the dark color arena sneered. Obviously, he was able to attack Luo Qingtong and the others as soon as he came in. However, he didn't do so because he felt that he alone wasn't enough to punish Luo Qingtong and the others. Wasn't the other party relying on Elder Fong and the others' influence? When they realized that Elder Fong and the others would not protect them and would even allow them to punish them, what kind of expression would they have? He actually dared to cause trouble in his dark-colored arena. The dark-colored arena master's eyes were cold. He coldly waited for Elder Fong and the others to harshly berate Luo Qingtong and the others and abandon them. Elder Fong and the others coldly looked at them and said, "Dark-colored arena master, this matter is obviously your dark-colored arena's fault. Your own people have already knelt here. What else do you have to say? You even dare to let us punish Miss Qingtong and the others. You are simply too daring." Elder Fong and the others clearly understood that even 100 dark-colored arena masters couldn't compare with Luo Qingtong. Chapter 2931. When the voices of Elder Fong and the others rang out, the dark-colored arena's arena master was instantly enraged. He didn't expect that Elder Fong and the rest would rather offend him to protect Luo Qingtong and the rest. Are these people crazy? Just for these low-level mainlanders? The dark-colored arena's owner was furious. Then he said coldly, "Fine. Since that's the case, don't blame the dark-colored arena for being impolite." As he spoke, he pointed at Luo Qingtong and the rest and said, "Take them down. Whoever dares to obstruct will be dealt with together with them." As he spoke, his cold eyes swept across Elder Fong and the rest. Then he sneered and said, "Also inform the Star Alliance's leader that we want to join forces with them." The dark-colored arena's owner's face was cold. Elder Fong and the rest really didn't know how to appreciate favors. Previously, he only thought that the Star Alliance's leader's power was deeply rooted. If he cooperated with them, he wouldn't get any benefits. Therefore, he thought of cooperating with Elder Fong and the rest. In the end, they actually didn't know how to appreciate favors and insisted on protecting Luo Qingtong and the rest. They were slapping his face. Since that's the case, why should he cooperate with them? Naturally, he should switch to the Star Alliance's leader and the rest. As for Elder Fong and the rest, they would be unlucky along with Luo Qingtong and the rest. However, just as he was thinking this, he heard Luo Qingtong's cold voice. "Is that so? Unfortunately, I'm afraid you won't have this chance." Luo Qingtong's face was indifferent. She didn't say anything and was just watching the dark-colored arena's owner's performance. Firstly, she wanted to see Elder Fong and the rest's attitude. Secondly, she wanted to see what the dark-colored arena's owner would say. If the other party could take the initiative to ask about what happened in the dark-colored arena and deal with it impartially, she might not let them off. But obviously she was disappointed. These people were jackals of the same tribe as Tanyu and the rest. Since that's the case, she didn't need to be polite with them anymore. Destroy them all. Luo Qingtong's voice was cold. As soon as her voice sounded, the arena master let out a sneer. Ah, are you kidding me? Destroy us? He sneered, with just the two of you? Even with Fang Qinggan and the others, it's still not enough. The dark-colored arena's owner sneered. The strength of this group of people was not at all inferior to Elder Fang's group. The other party wanted to destroy them? That was simply a fool's dream. The dark-colored arena master and the others were able to escape easily. They were not afraid of the attacks from Elder Fang and the others at all. However, just as he spoke, in an instant, boom, the dark-colored arena's owner was smashed into the ground. His knees were broken just like Elder Mao's. He was clearly much stronger than his opponent, but in front of Chu Tiany's power, there was no difference between the two of them. A bunch of clowns? Chu Tiany's voice was cold. He was very impatient in his heart. If he hadn't signed a one-year contract with Luo Qingtong and if Yin Yang wasn't here, he wouldn't have listened to the dark-colored arena master dawdling for so long. To him, the other party was just like a fly. When Chu Tiany's voice sounded, Elder Fang and the rest, who were stunned and horrified, discovered Chu Tiany's existence. Chapter 2932. They looked in shock at the dark-colored arena master who was pressed down without any strength to fight back and was ruthlessly smashed into the ground like a steak. The shock and horror in their hearts were simply indescribable. In the next second, they suddenly cried out in alarm and hurriedly fled in panic. Ah! However, before they could even take a step out, their figures had already exploded like fireworks in an instant and scattered in all directions. And Chu Tiany's figure did not leave the corner at all. Take care of all these. From now on, the dark-colored arena belongs to you. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she ordered Elder Fang and the others. The latter and the others were already dumbfounded by this scene. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, they all nodded subconsciously. Then Elder Fang quickly regained his senses and said to Luo Qingtong, No. Miss Qingtong, this is the property that you fought for. As he spoke, he shook his head repeatedly, indicating that he did not dare to accept it. They did not contribute at all. How could they dare to take Luo Qingtong's things? Not to mention that Luo Qingtong had a super strong cultivator by her side. No one knew if he would be unhappy or not. As the crowd thought this, they immediately peeked at Chu Tiany's face. They did not dare to imagine. The other party was actually a strong cultivator around the 9th level of the human martial realm. And the other party was obviously following Luo Qingtong's orders. Oh my god, this world is really a fantasy. That young emperor's strength was amazing, but the strength behind Luo Qingtong was not weak either. These two people were simply a fantasy. Everyone's expression was stern. They thought about how Mo Zhuling had been saying that Luo Qingtong was not good enough for Yi Qianming. Now it seemed that who was not good enough? Mo Zhuling racked his brains to hook up with the young master of the 7-star arena. But Luo Qingtong was able to make a strong cultivator around the 9th level of the human martial realm listen to her orders. They weren't even on the same level. The patriarch of the strongest family in the 7-star field may not even have the strength of 6th level of the human martial realm, let alone 9th level. While everyone was shocked, Luo Qingtong said to them indifferently, It's fine, Xiao Xiao and the others can't take care of this kind of business. You can take it. Luo Qingtong didn't care about the industries of the Star Desolate Domain. As for Xiao Xiao and the others, it was still not suitable for them to take over such a large business. It was best for them to hand it over to Elder Fang and the others to take care of it. The other party had a good relationship with the True Spill Continent and had always been looking after the True Spill Continent. Luo Qingtong didn't mind adding a bit more strength and weight to the other party, making it easier for them to resist the Star Alliance's Alliance Master. Of course, it would be best if they took down the entire Star Alliance. In this way, Luo Qingtong wouldn't need to worry about the safety of the True Spill Continent in the Star Desolate Domain. After returning this time, Luo Qingtong's heart was already filled with killing intent towards Mo Zhuling and the Star Alliance's Alliance Master. The reason why she didn't move against them was because she hadn't figured out the identity of the black fog behind Mo Zhuling. Secondly, it was because she hadn't found a good candidate to take over. The Star Alliance's strength was so great that it ruled the entire Star Desolate Domain. It wasn't something that Su Xiaoxiao and Grandfather Luo could easily take over. Even if they took over, they wouldn't know if others were secretly complying with them. And at this time, Elder Fang and the others were the best candidates. That was why Luo Qingtong allowed the Dark Color Arena's owner to be presumptuous. She wanted to see Elder Fang's choice. Chapter 29:33. When Elder Fong and the others heard Luo Qingtong's words, they looked at each other in dismay. They were pleasantly surprised. But soon Elder Fong came to a realization. He swallowed hard, rubbed his hands and said to Luo Qingtong with great difficulty and caution, "We are very grateful for Miss Qingtong's kindness. But this is still Miss Qingtong's business. How about this? We will take care of it for Miss Qingtong. When the time comes, we will send all the relevant matters to little friend Xiao Xiao and the others for them to review. What do you think?" Elder Fong's attitude was very humble. He lowered his head in front of Luo Qingtong. Whether it was his words or his attitude, it was as if he was Luo Qingtong's subordinate, not a supreme elder of the Star Alliance. Luo Qingtong looked at him with a faint smile. She already understood what he meant. "You want to rely on me and become my subordinate? Take care of her business for her and report all the matters to Xiao Xiao and the others." If he wasn't her subordinate, then what was he? Elder Fong and the others did not do this simply to curry favor with her. Sure enough, as soon as Luo Qingtong said this, Elder Fong's face turned red. He stuttered and said carefully, "This old man and the others do have such intentions. What does Miss Qingtong think?" Others didn't know the power behind Luo Qingtong, but they were very clear about it. At this moment, other than the extremely powerful young emperor backing her up, Luo Qingtong's secret forces were also frightening. Elder Fong and the others didn't care what others thought. They knew that as long as they could establish a relationship with Luo Qingtong, or even become her subordinate, then their future would be limitless. Just look at the treatment of Su Xiaoxiao and the others from True Spill Continent. Everyone's expression was very cautious. They were afraid that Luo Qingtong would be angry at their request. After all, the other party was even able to take in high-level human martial realm experts as his subordinates, so how could he possibly be interested in people like them? However, they didn't know that Chu Tianyi wasn't Luo Qingtong's subordinate. It was only because of Yen Yang that he signed a one-year contract with Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong didn't regard Chu Tianyi as a subordinate. She just wanted to borrow his strength to deal with the Dark Arena. Of course, if not for Chu Tianyi, she could have done it herself. However, since there was someone else who could use it, why would she need to do it herself? Luo Qingtong looked at the cautious Star Alliance elders, thought for a moment and then agreed. Sure. Her expression was indifferent. She was naturally willing to have complete control over Star Alliance. Since these people were willing to rely on her, then she would take advantage of the situation. At this moment, Elder Fong and the others were overjoyed. They hurriedly swore allegiance to Luo Qingtong, and then happily went to deal with the Dark Arena. The matter of Luo Qingtong coming to the Dark Arena couldn't be hidden. However, to outsiders, Elder Fong and the others said that they couldn't stand the Dark Arena's people attacking Luo Qingtong, so they brazenly attacked and killed everyone in the Dark Arena. For this reason, Elder Fong and the others pretended to be seriously injured in order to confuse outsiders. Especially the Star Alliance's leader, Mo Zhuling and the others. This was because they could see from Luo Qingtong's attitude that she didn't want Mo Zhuling and the others to know her true strength. Chapter 29:34. Luo Qingtong was very satisfied. She originally wanted to ask Elder Fong and the others to do this, but she didn't expect that they had already done it without waiting for her instructions. Immediately, Luo Qingtong took Su Xiaoxiao and the others and prepared to leave here. However, before she could walk out of the dark color arena, she saw a group of people rushing towards her. Xiao Qi. Ji Feiyu looked anxious and forgot to hide the way he called Luo Qingtong. In fact, after knowing that the boss of the 7 unique True Yen was Luo Qingtong and Luo Qingtong's surname was also Luo, he suspected that Luo Qingtong was Luo Xiaoqi. But he didn't come to check. At this moment he heard that Luo Qingtong had come to the Dark Colors Arena to cause trouble, and that the Dark Colors Arena Master and a group of Dark Colors elites had rushed back to deal with her severely. He immediately rushed over after hearing the news. Because the Dark Colored Arena Master and the others did not hide their actions, anyone who saw them rushing back angrily would be able to find out what had happened. And Ji Feiyu had been secretly paying attention to Luo Qingtong's news, so he knew what had happened at once. When Luo Qingtong saw Ji Feiyu and the others rushing over, she was also surprised. Ji Feiyu? Before she finished speaking, the voices of Su Xiaoxiao and the others sounded at once. Boss, you know Child Ji and the others? They looked at Ji Feiyu and the others who had rushed over with surprise. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. They saved me before. Luo Qingtong didn't expect Ji Feiyu to guess that she was Luo Qingtong. She was going to meet them with a different face, but she didn't expect that they would find her by themselves. When Luo Qingtong's words sounded, Suiyu and the others' voices also sounded. Little Seven, so it's you? No wonder young master rushed over here in such a hurry when he heard that Luo Qingtong was in trouble. So that's your real name? A group of maidservants came down from the carriage with smiles on their faces. Luo Qingtong was stunned when she saw that they were ready to go on a long trip. Sister Suiyu, are you leaving? Luo Qingtong's brows slightly wrinkled. Weren't Ji Feiyu and the others planning to stay in Star City until Ji Feiyu's strength improved before going back? Why are we going back now? How many days had it been? When Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, Suiyu's gloomy voice also sounded. That's right. You don't know. Qin Xiong and those bastards ran back and said that because of you, young master. Before she could finish her words, Ji Feiyu's gentle and firm voice sounded. Well, Suiyu, little Seven is fine. Let's go. Ji Feiyu was very careful. Although he didn't ask about Luo Qingtong's situation, he could guess that Luo Qingtong was fine when he saw them come out of the dark arena unscathed. Little Seven was so powerful when she was in her cat form, not to mention when she was in her human form. Ji Feiyu looked deeply at Luo Qingtong and didn't say anything. He let Suiyu and the others help him get on the carriage. He didn't want Luo Qingtong to know about what happened over there so as not to implicate her. In fact, if this matter didn't involve Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't listen to his family's orders so easily. Chapter 2935. Luo Qingtong frowned when she heard his voice. Qin Xiong and the others? Luo Qingtong's eyelids twitched when she thought of the conflict between her and Ji Feiyu and Mo Zhuling breaking off the engagement. Qin Xiong and the others must have gone back and told the family Ji that Ji Feiyu's engagement was broken off because of her, right? Luo Qingtong could imagine what kind of excuses Qin Xiong and the others would fabricate to slander her and Ji Feiyu in order to deal with them. After all, Ji Feiyu's engagement was broken off and the family Ji had lost face. If Qin Xiong and the others didn't come up with a clear and acceptable explanation for abandoning their master and returning to the family Ji wouldn't accept it. At that time, the punishment that they would receive would not be ordinary. However, pushing the blame to her and Ji Feiyu was not wrong. Ji Feiyu's engagement was broken off by Mo Zhuling because he indulged in beauty. This was the family Ji's greatest humiliation. Qin Xiong and the others had betrayed their master and fled. Not only were they not in the wrong, they were even rewarded. As a vixen, she was the target of the family Ji's people. What the hell? Luo Qingtong's head was filled with black lines after she understood. She didn't want to have anything to do with Ji Feiyu and be labeled as someone who stole Mo Zhuling's fiancé. That was why she had left Ji Feiyu's fleet early on. If she hadn't met Ji Feiyu by chance when she turned into a little white cat, she wouldn't have had any interaction with him. She was still able to bear the title of a green TB*TC. What the F*CK? Luo Qingtong cursed in her heart. Ji Feiyu vaguely sensed that Luo Qingtong seemed to have seen through something. He said gently and firmly, "Little Seven, don't worry. I won't let them implicate you in this matter." When the time came, he would take responsibility for this matter. Come to think of it, if he were to reveal that he could cultivate, the people in the family would no longer keep an eye on Little Seven's matters. Those people just wanted to deal with him. Seeing that he could cultivate, they must be very anxious and vicious in their hearts, right? Ji Feiyu thought about it and sneered. Then he waved his hand at Luo Qingtong, indicating that Suiyu and the others should leave. At this moment, Luo Qingtong suddenly lifted the curtain of Ji Feiyu's carriage. She stepped onto the carriage and sat opposite him. "I'll go back with you," Luo Qingtong said in a low voice. Was this a joke? Was it so easy to be labeled as a green TBB*TCH? Luo Qingtong would never admit it. What's more, Qin Xiong and the others wanted to deal with her. How could she let them go? Luo Qingtong thought of this and glanced at Ji Feiyu. When she first arrived at Star City, she wanted to get rid of Qin Xiong and the others. However, the latter was stopped by Ji Feiyu when he and the others were about to kill her. Otherwise, how could Qin Xiong and the others have the chance to stir up trouble? However, Ji Feiyu did it for her own good. To a certain extent, it could be said that he saved her. Although she didn't need him to save her, she still owed him this favor. This time she would go and get rid of Qin Xiong and the others. At the same time, she would also remove the blood curse on Ji Feiyu's body. The power of the blood curse in his body was exactly what Luo Qingtong needed. This was killing two birds with one stone. Everything happened together. There was no time like the present. She would go with them. Chapter 2936. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she immediately ordered Su Xiaoxiao and the others to stay in Star City. In any case, with Chu Qianni there, she wasn't afraid that anything would happen to them. She also wanted to see if Mo Zhuling and the others would cause any more trouble. To be honest, the only thing that Luo Qingtong was worried about was the black fog behind Mo Zhuling. She didn't particularly care about anything else. When Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu left, Mo Zhuling had already received news about the dark-colored arena. She already knew that Luo Qingtong had returned and was gnashing her teeth in hatred. But at this time she heard someone report that the dark-colored arena had wanted to cause trouble for Luo Qingtong, but had been destroyed by Elder Fang and the others. This was naturally the news that Elder Fang and the others had spread. No matter what, they couldn't let their actions be unjustified. Moreover, the news that the dark-colored arena's people had spread about Luo Qingtong coming to cause trouble was originally to slander Luo Qingtong. Naturally, they had to make this matter public. When Mo Zhuling heard this news, he was so angry that he fell backwards. That bitch, how could she be so lucky every time? When the dark-colored arena's arena master and the others rushed over, Elder Fang and the others were also there. They had saved her for no reason. Otherwise the other party would have been a corpse by now. How hateful. Mo Zhuling was so angry that his teeth were itching. At this time Lu Yu's voice sounded. Ling, this is the group that our family is preparing to send to the True Spill continent. Take a look and see if it's convenient for you to arrange it? As Lu Yu spoke, he had already led the group of 5 people into Mo Zhuling's room. The latter was surprised. Looking at the 5 people behind Lu Yu, he discovered that they were the Lu family's elite experts. The strength of each and every one of them was actually around the 9th level of the Amethyst Elder. Through a special method, they had suppressed their strength to the 7th or 8th level. It seemed that the Lu family attached great importance to what he said this time. As Mo Zhuling thought about this, the anger and resentment he felt because Luo Qingtong had gained another benefit finally dissipated a little. She looked at the group of 5 and said to Lu Yu, "Yes, Yu Xian. But it's only investigating the matters of the True Spill continent. Do you really need such powerful people?" She lay in front of Lu Yu and acted coquettishly. She was half guilty and half puzzled as she said, "Why don't we arrange for some ordinary purple venerable realm experts?" He didn't want the Lu family to find out that he was lying. Mo Zhuling's eyes flickered as he spoke. Lu Yu gently pinched her nose and said with a doting smile, "It's fine. They are all people sent by the family. I won't deny them face." As he said this, he whispered into Mo Zhuling's ear, "There's nothing we can do about it. They are afraid that I am speaking irresponsibly, so they are deliberately protecting you. Ling, you should know that in front of the family, I have already said all the good things about you. As long as we can confirm that the True Spill continent is hiding some secret, then the matter of our marriage proposal banquet can be cleared. At that time you will still be my bride. I will definitely pick you up with a huge bridge and 10 miles of red dowry." Lu Yu's expression was gentle, his eyes beseeching. Mo Zhuling was very hesitant. But when she thought about the first time she met Luo Qingtong in the True Spill continent, something had indeed happened. As long as the Lu family could investigate that change, then she wouldn't be lying. As she thought this, she nodded and said, "Okay." Chapter 2937. When Mo Zhuling said this, he was especially proud. Her relationship with the Star Alliance's leader had naturally been repaired. Or rather, it wasn't repaired. Instead, it was Mo Zhuling's one-sided, high-profile and crushing return. If the Star Alliance's leader didn't want to lose his position and be dealt with by the Lu family, he could only listen to Mo Zhuling's orders. And he really did need to rely on Mo Zhuling's power. Otherwise, after Elder Fang and the others annexed the dark-colored arena, they would be on par with him, and might even be on the verge of overwhelming him. While Mo Zhuling was helping the Lu family arrange for the 5 members of the Lu family to be sent to the True Spill continent, on the other side, Ji Feiyu's carriage. He looked at the girl's delicate profile and sighed. "Little 7, you shouldn't have come." Ji Feiyu knew that Luo Qingtong wouldn't be able to take this lying down. It was fine if she didn't know about this, but once she did, how could she tolerate Qin Xiong's slander? It was because he hadn't reacted in time, and she had noticed the clues. But this was their family Ji's matter, and Ji Feiyu didn't want to implicate Luo Qingtong. She had done enough for him. And he couldn't trouble her anymore. "Stop the carriage," Ji Feiyu said to Sueyu and the others. Then he looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Little 7, unless you get off, I won't go back to the family Ji." He didn't want to implicate her by going back to the family Ji. If she wanted to go back with him, why would Ji Feiyu need to go back? He might as well stay in the Star Alliance and wait for the family Ji's people to come and attack him. At least here Luo Qingtong still had someone to rely on. When he said this, Luo Qingtong's brows immediately furrowed. When Sueyu and the others heard his words, they hurriedly stopped the carriage. After all, they also felt that Luo Qingtong didn't need to go with them. Firstly, this matter had nothing to do with her in the first place. It was all because of them. Secondly, this matter was directed at her and young master. If she went over, wouldn't people confirm her relationship with the young master? At that time, not only would her reputation be tarnished, she would also suffer together with the young master. Sueyu and the others had decided to go through thick and thin with Ji Feiyu. However, Luo Qingtong was just an innocent person who was implicated. Not to mention their young master, even they couldn't bear it. Everyone thought so and immediately said to Luo Qingtong, "That's right, little seven. We appreciate your kindness. But you really don't have to take the risk with us. You don't know, but the family Ji situation is not someone you can afford to offend." Sueyu and the others didn't mean to say such hurtful words. But when they thought of the danger Luo Qingtong would face if she went back with them, they immediately hardened their hearts and said these words, hoping that she would back off. After all, this matter had nothing to do with her. It was them who implicated her. Or rather, it was the young master who implicated her. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she looked at them and said, "I can cure your young master's illness." As she spoke, she turned to Ji Feiyu and said, "The blood curse in your body hasn't been completely removed. It's just isolated. After returning to the family Ji, as long as the person behind you is willing, they can regain control of the blood curse in your body at any time. They can even absorb all your soul and vitality in advance." Chapter 29:38. What's more, you were supposed to have a perfected innate body, a body blessed by the heavens for cultivation. If it weren't for the existence of this blood curse, your strength would have increased to an extremely terrifying level long ago. Don't you want to experience the feeling of having all the power in your hands and having everything under your feet? I'm going back with you not only because of Qin Xiong and the others, but also because the blood curse in your body hasn't been lifted yet. And I just happen to need its power. So, do you understand? As soon as she said this, Sueyu, Ji Feiyu, and the others were instantly shocked. Sueyu and the others directly blurted out, "Little seven, you can actually see the problem with our young master's body?" Of course. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She originally didn't plan to hide the fact that she could save Ji Feiyu in front of Sueyu and the others. Otherwise, how could she go back with them? But she originally planned to go back with them after completely solving the problem with the Star Alliance. Now she could only bring forward the plan. But it didn't matter. Anyway, he had to make a trip there. It didn't matter when she went. Now that the power of the black fog was severely damaged, it wouldn't be able to come out to stir up trouble in a short period of time. Otherwise, Mo Zhuling wouldn't have been so embarrassed at the proposal banquet. The reason why Luo Qingtong left Chu Tianyi and the others was to prepare for a rainy day. She wasn't really worried that the black fog would come out. She always liked to think about things to the extreme, and this time was no exception. It was just a subconscious habit. When her voice sounded, Sueyu and the others' expressions became unusually excited and emotional. This is really great. The crowd didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be able to see Ji Feiyu's problem. Not only that, but she could also cure it. They originally thought that Ji Feiyu's problem had been cured with the help of the little white cat. They didn't expect that it was just a temporary solution. Everyone was excited, but Ji Feiyu's expression was indescribably complicated. He looked at Luo Qingtong, then nodded lightly and said, "Okay." Actually, it wasn't that he wasn't moved by Luo Qingtong's words. However, she had already helped him a lot, and he didn't want her to take any more risks. If Luo Qingtong hadn't said those last words, saying that his blood curse power was good for her, perhaps Ji Feiyu would still refuse to let Luo Qingtong go back with him. But at this moment he could only agree. After all, the other party had helped him so much, and he had nothing to give in return. Since the power of the blood curse was beneficial to her, he naturally wouldn't shirk his responsibility. As for the dangers in the family Ji, even if he had to be smashed to pieces, he would send her away safely. When Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu continued on their journey, a figure blocked the path of Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu's carriage. "Master, I also want to go to the family Ji with you." Yin Yang, dressed in white, appeared in front of Luo Qingtong with a white jade zither in her arms. When she appeared, Chu Tianyi's figure also appeared not far away. "I also want to go." He glanced at Yin Yang with an expressionless face. The latter had deliberately chased out of the city to avoid him. However, Chu Tianyi had been paying attention to Yin Yang. How could he let her leave his sight so easily? Chapter 2939. When Chu Tianyi's figure appeared, Yin Yang immediately clenched her teeth. What does it have to do with you that Master and I are going to the family Ji? Master's order is for you to stay in Star City and take care of Su Xiaoxiao and the others. Who allowed you to leave without permission? Her face was filled with anger. She didn't want to be with Chu Tianyi, that was why she left Star City. Who would have thought that he would follow her out? This man was like a ghost that wouldn't go away. Yin Yang really wanted to curse at him. But when she thought of the things that he did under the alias of Lin Yi and the things that he did for her, and then when she thought of how he sold himself to Luo Qingtong for a year, she couldn't say anything. She and Luo Qingtong were master and servant in name, but in reality they were family. She saw Luo Qingtong as her savior and faith, and she was willing to be her servant. But Chu Tianyi wasn't like that. He was the head of the Tianfeng Chu family. In the Tianfeng region he was an ambitious and ruthless person. Such a person was willing to lower his head for her and serve Luo Qingtong as his master, just to prove that he didn't have any ulterior motives when he approached her. Yin Yang's heart was touched. But how could the knot in her heart be untied after so many years? How much did she suffer because of this man? The source of all the tragedies in her life was all because of him. Even if she knew that he was set up, Yin Yang couldn't help but hate him. In fact, if Chu Tianyi didn't use the identity of Lin Yi to stay by her side, gain her trust and break her heart, she wouldn't have been able to protect herself. Back then, when his identity was exposed, Yin Yang would not have been able to restrain herself from making a move. When her voice rang out, Chu Tianyi's face was expressionless but firm as he said, "Back then I said that my only request for signing the slave contract was to be with you. I have the right to refuse the order when you are not here." In short, Chu Tianyi wanted to follow Yin Yang. When Yin Yang heard his words, she was touched and angry. She gritted her teeth. "You." Before she could finish her words, Chu Tianyi had already gotten into the carriage, moving faster than her. Yin Yang had no choice but to get into the carriage with him. Anyway, even if she turned back immediately, Chu Tianyi would be able to follow her. Since she couldn't get rid of him, Yin Yang didn't want to trouble. Bringing him to the family Ji, at least he could do something for Luo Qingtong. With that thought in mind, Yin Yang ignored Chu Tianyi. Seeing the two chasing after her, Chu Tianyi's words, Luo Qingtong's Shi Tianyi's. She purposely didn't bring Chu Tianyi with her because she wanted the other party to be on guard and prevent others from taking advantage of the situation. But since the other party followed, so be it. Looking at the way he and Yin Yang got along, Luo Qingtong was a little worried about leaving them in the Star Alliance. If the two of them quarreled, forget it, she'd better take them with her. Luo Qingtong thought so and immediately dispelled the idea of letting them go back. The group of people rushed out of the Star Wilderness. At this time, a group of people was also rushing in the direction of the Star Wilderness. "Mother, are we really going to that True Spill continent?" Chu Yufei looked at a woman in front of her. The latter's body was very luxurious and extraordinary, with a kind of graceful bearing. However, her expression was exceptionally cold and beautiful. The light in her eyes was like a viper's tongue. Chapter 2940. When Chu Yufei spoke, the woman turned around and looked at her indifferently. "Of course. If we don't go there, are we supposed to wait for Chu Lingfeng to succeed and bring that woman over? Then we'll both die without a burial ground in the Chu clan?" Bai Xing's voice was cold. She had never wanted to leave the comfortable life of the Tianfeng Chu family and run to a remote and low-class place like the Star Wilderness. Furthermore, this place was a stain on her life that she didn't want to mention at all. When Bai Xing was still in the Tianfeng Chu family, she hated mentioning her origins. She didn't want anyone to know that she came from a low-class 9-star region and a low-class continent. She had worked hard all these years to build up her power in the Tianfeng Chu family and make the Tianfeng Chu family accept her. How much effort had she spent? She had done all this so that people would completely forget about her origins. However, just as she had been about to succeed, Chu Lingfeng had come and almost beaten her back to her original state. Bai Xing's fingernails dug into her palms as she thought about this. She didn't want to come here at all. She didn't want anyone to know or mention her lowly origins. However, she had no choice but to come here. Chu Lingfeng had already gained a firm foothold in the Chu family. His lack of temperament and overly straightforward personality had been completely ignored by the Chu family in the face of his tyrannical potential. In fact, no matter which family in the 6-star region it was, Chu Lingfeng would still be worshipped by others if they had such an outstanding disciple, even if he was a fool who didn't know anything. Furthermore, Chu Lingfeng wasn't completely stupid. He still had a clear sense of right and wrong as well as his likes and dislikes. Furthermore, his keen intuition for battle was something that ordinary cultivators didn't possess. Under these circumstances, Bai Xing had been able to rely on her power in the Tianfeng Chu family to maintain her status. However, ever since Chu Lingfeng had returned from the abandoned continent and his strength had increased to the level of the human martial arts realm, she had lost this advantage. Chu Lingfeng hated her to the core. Not only that, but her daughter, Chu Yufei, had also been thoroughly hated by Chu Lingfeng because she had obeyed her orders and gotten close to Chu Ke and the others. Originally, Chu Lingfeng had just turned a blind eye to them. But now he was demanding that they all be expelled from the Chu family. However, Bai Xing didn't have the confidence to go against Chu Lingfeng. Everyone knew what had happened on the abandoned continent. That fool, Chu Lingfeng. Moreover, he had taken a fancy to a young man named Luo Shaoqi on the abandoned continent. And that young man was the lover of the master of the underground palace. With all these things added together, Chu Lingfeng's status in the Tianfeng Chu family instantly rose to a higher level. Because the master of the underground palace didn't come looking for trouble with the Chu family, it was obvious that the young man was protecting Chu Lingfeng. Chu Lingfeng. That fool. He had such luck. How could this not make Bai Xing hate him to the core? And because she had instigated the 9th Elders and 3rd Elders people to join forces and attack Chu Lingfeng. Although in the end, no evidence was found because she was too careful, everyone in the Chu family was still displeased with her. Chapter 2941. Bai Xing knew in her heart that if she did not think of a solution quickly, she, the fake savior of the Chu family, would be completely exposed and die a horrible death when everyone in the Chu family changed their minds. Bai Xing did not doubt that Hu Yinyang would not let her off. After all, she was also involved in the incident back then. In fact, she was the one who had found Chu Tianyi, and she was the one who had given Bai Feng the idea. It was all for the sake of completely destroying Hu Yinyang. But who would have thought that Chu Tianyi's identity was so powerful? Bai Xing was simply stunned when he revealed his strength later on. Later on, she hurriedly asked Bai Feng for advice and asked her to recommend her and Chu Tianyi to leave so that she could get close to this man. She was confident that her judgment was not wrong. But reality proved that she had still underestimated Chu Tianyi. Who would have thought that the man who had fallen in the far west wilderness like a beggar would be the son of a 6-star region's aristocratic family? In the end, Chu Tianyi used his own strength to eliminate the Chu family's enemies and competitors and completely became the overlord of the 6-star region's Tianfeng domain. Bai Xing was deeply infatuated with such an identity and strength. It also made her hate herself for being so blind to have given such a good man to Hu Yinyang and let her take advantage of him for no reason. Otherwise, today the woman that Chu Tianyi could not forget and was unswervingly loyal to would be her. Thinking of this, Bai Xing dug her fingernails deeper into her palms. She did not even realize that she was bleeding. Chu Yufei's heart also trembled when she heard her words. Her life in the Tianfeng Chu family had been very difficult during this period of time. 3rd Elder, 9th Elder, and the others had been completely punished for their failure. All of them had been crippled of their strength and bloodline and expelled from the Chu family. They would never be allowed to appear in the Tianfeng domain again. Could be said that they were all finished. After the incident on the abandoned continent, the Tianfeng Chu family had almost completely sided with Chu Lingfeng. He was now the rightful heir of the Chu family. No one could snatch his position away from him. Not only that, when Chu Tianyi was not in the Tianfeng Chu family, Chu Lingfeng had already made all the decisions for the Tianfeng Chu family. With the support of 8th Elder, Chu Lingfeng was not afraid that Tianfeng Chu family's decisions would be wrong because of his personality and ability. In the future, the entire Chu clan would belong to Chu Lingfeng. There was no doubt about that. How could Chu Yufei, who was suspected of being too close to Chu Ke and was very likely to be involved in Chu Lingfeng's murder, have a good life in the Tianfeng Chu family? If not for Bai Xing's identity as the savior of the family head, and her management in the Tianfeng Chu family, Chu Yufei did not know what would have happened to her. Being expelled from the Tianfeng Chu family like Chu Ke would be considered a light punishment. After all, the other party was a real descendant of the Tianfeng Chu family, and she was an outsider. Yes, an outsider. Chu Yufei had never hated her identity so much. If she was the daughter of the family head, things would not have turned out like this, right? No matter how powerful Chu Lingfeng was or how infatuated Chu Tianyi was with Yen Yang, he would not disregard his own life and identity. He would definitely give her better treatment and let her stay in the Chu family. She would not have to spend so much effort to deal with Chu Lingfeng and the others, and she would not have been treated like this. Chapter 2942. In short, we can't let that slut Hu Yinyang have the chance to go to Tianfeng Chu's family. And we can't let the people who knew about us live. As Bai Xing said this, her face revealed an extremely sinister expression. She had come here without telling the Chu family because she wanted to eliminate Hu Yinyang and everyone who knew about her past. That fool Chu Lingfeng was nothing to be afraid of. The words he said were not trustworthy at all. But if he revealed the location of the true Spill continent, and Chu Tianyi and the others found out about the past, then even if she had 10 lives she still wouldn't be able to survive. Therefore, not only did she come here to destroy Hu Yinyang and the Hu family, but she also wanted to get rid of all the people from the Bai family who knew about her in the past and might even have something on her. So many years had passed and she didn't know whether the Bai family had eliminated family Hu or not. If they had already eliminated them, then it would save her a lot of trouble. But looking at Chu Lingfeng, that idiot, living so well, he was afraid that the Hu clan's people were all fine. Otherwise, how could Hu Yinyang raise her son so well while being hunted down by the Bai family? What a bunch of trash. Bai Xing was very dissatisfied. When she had given Bai Feng advice, it had already reached such a point. She had listed out all the things that the other party needed to do. She didn't expect that she still couldn't do anything to family Hu. Otherwise, how could she have been forced to this point by Chu Lingfeng? What a bunch of useless fools. Since that was the case, then she would personally take action and eliminate them all together. In this way the people who knew about this matter would all be gone. So what if she was hated by Chu Lingfeng? Just her identity as his savior was enough for her to live comfortably in Tianfeng Chu's family. Even if she was expelled from the Tianfeng Chu family in the end, she would still receive a generous settlement. What did she have to fear? With this thought in mind, Bai Xing immediately led a group of experts she had recruited from the Tianfeng Chu clan and rushed towards the direction of the Star Wilderness domain. And these people were under her control. They were in the same boat as her. Even if he knew what Bai Xing was going to do and what would happen if the family found out, he had no choice but to obey her. Otherwise, if Bai Xing was unlucky, none of them would have a good ending. He might as well fight it out with Bai Xing. Perhaps he would still have a chance to survive. While they were heading towards the Star-Desolate region, Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu had also arrived at the edge of the East Pavilion region after a period of travel. The East Pavilion region was not very far from the Star Wilderness domain. Otherwise, the Star Alliance's leader would not have gone to the East Pavilion region to gain experience and have the opportunity to save the family Ji's old master. At this time, Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu had just stepped into the boundary of the East Pavilion region when they bumped into a group of people who were about to rush to the Star Wilderness domain. This group of people was none other than the family Ji's group. "Yo, my good cousin, you are finally willing to come back?" Seeing Ji Feiyu's carriage, the group of people who were about to rush to the Star Wilderness domain suddenly stopped. Then, streams of light descended from the starry sky and landed in front of Ji Feiyu and the others. At this time, Ji Feiyu and Luo Qingtong had just entered the boundary of the East Pavilion region and were about to get off the carriage to rest. Chapter 2943. She must be Luo Xiaoqi, right? Ji Feitong looked Luo Qingtong up and down. He was stunned and disdainful. She is indeed a beauty. No wonder she was able to charm my cousin so much that he even disregarded his own engagement and caused the Ji family to have their engagement annulled by the people of the Star Alliance. What a disgrace. His words were very rude and his face was full of contempt. Ji Feiyu immediately became angry. "Shut up." He gritted his teeth and almost coughed violently due to the excitement in his heart. His body was still recuperating. Even if Luo Qingtong temporarily isolated the power of the blood curse and he would not continue to lose vitality, the loss of so many years could be healed immediately. He coughed and scolded Ji Feitong coldly, "Since you know that I am your cousin, you should know what kind of person I am." Mo Zhuling did not break off the engagement because of an affair. It was because Mo Zhuling found a better woman, the young master of an aristocratic family in the 7-star field. That's why he broke off the engagement with me. In your mouths, it became me indulging in beauty and wantonly humiliating my friend. Is this the way the family Ji taught you? Or is it that you are such people in private? That's why you slander me so wantonly and don't see the truth at all? Ji Feiyu's voice was cold. When he was preparing to return to the family Ji, he already knew what kind of humiliation he was about to face. That was why he didn't want Luo Qingtong to come back with him. Otherwise, not only would he face this humiliation but also Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong was implicated by him. She saved his life and cured his illness. In the end, she ended up being despised with him and even had her reputation tarnished. He was extremely upset. He never got angry easily. His face was always gentle and calm, but this meeting was full of anger. A burst of Family G's first wife's imposing aura and graceful noble aura was instantly revealed. He looked at the stunned Ji Feitong and said coldly, "Apologize to her. Otherwise, don't blame me for punishing you as your eldest brother." You. Ji Feitong was stunned by the sudden change in Ji Feiyu's aura. When he came back to his senses, he instantly flew into a rage out of humiliation. Ji Feiyu had always been the target of ridicule for Family G's descendants. As the legitimate son of the Family G, he was not allowed to cultivate despite his noble status. In fact, it was unknown whether the Family G's lineage would cease to exist after him. Therefore, they were never stingy with their ridicule. In fact, because of his identity as the son of the first wife, their mockery would only intensify. Ji Feiyu had never stooped to their level. This made them think that he would not dare to resist them. Now that Ji Feiyu suddenly berated him, his aura intimidated him in an instant. How could Ji Feitong endure this? Immediately, he began to scold him harshly. "You piece of trash, what did you say? How dare you say that you want to punish me? Do you think you have the right to do so? If it weren't for your status as the legitimate son of the Family G, what do you think you are in the Family G? You would have been kicked out of the Family G long ago to fend for yourself and die without a complete corpse." Chapter 2944. Ji Feitong's heart was filled with anger. He cursed out the words in his heart without any restraint. Sui Yu and the others' expressions changed. They no longer cared about the difference between master and servant, and directly attacked Ji Feitong. "Shut up. What right do you have to insult our young master? He is the son of the Family G's first wife, and also your eldest brother. Who allowed you to be disrespectful to him?" Sui Yu and the others were angry and distressed. No one knew better than her how much their young master had suffered. If it weren't for the worry that master and madam would be put in a difficult position in the Family G because of him, how could their young master endure so many years of ridicule and humiliation? However, his repeated forbearance did not result in these people stopping before going too far. Instead, they went from bad to worse. These people had not even figured out the truth of the matter, but they were already ridiculing and humiliating their young master without restraint. In their hearts, they did not care about what would happen to their young master after the engagement was broken, and they did not care about his feelings. They only wanted to make fun of his pain. Sui Yu and the others thought so, and the anger in their hearts grew. They attacked even harder. At this moment, a force suddenly rushed out from the side and inserted itself between Ji Feitong and Sui Yu, neutralizing their strength. "Stop." A voice sounded. Then, a very handsome man walked to Ji Feitong's side under the protection of a group of Family G experts. "What's going on? Feitong, why are you attacking my cousin's people?" Ji Feiting's voice was cold. In fact, he had seen everything that had happened just now. The reason why he did not come over was because Ji Feitong's words were very much to his liking. The other party was his lackey, and the sword in his hand would naturally strike wherever he pointed. Many things that Ji Feiting was not suitable to say and do were all done by him. Now that he saw Sui Yu and the others attacking him, Ji Feiting naturally had to intervene. As soon as Ji Feiting made a move, Ji Feitong acted as if he had met his savior and hurriedly shouted, "Big brother Feiting, you have to be the judge." Ji Feiyu's engagement was broken off by Mo Zhuling. I said a few words to the woman beside him, and he scolded me and even ordered his people to attack me. How can you say that he has no affair with the woman beside him? I don't believe it. Qin Xiong and the others came back and said it like it was true. They even attached a portrait of the woman, but Ji Feiyu still doesn't admit it. I think he's deliberately ruining our Family G's reputation. Ji Feitong's words and the others' faces instantly flushed red. They were naturally angry. The other party was really too shameless. It was clearly because he insulted the young master first that they attacked him. But in the end it was because they were attacking Luo Luo. These are two completely different things, okay? What's more, what he said was simply slander. Ji Feitong. Ji Feiyu's voice was cold. While Sui Yu and the others were furious, he stepped in front of Ji Feitong and the others and said coldly, "Do you dare to come with me to the Star Alliance's place and ask them if they broke off the engagement because Mo Zhuling was trying to climb up the social ladder? or because I was in love with someone else? If it's the former, I'll do whatever I want to you. If it's the latter, I'll compensate you with my life. You can do whatever you want with it. Chapter 29:45. Ji Feitong's expression changed the moment he said that. He was rash, but that didn't mean he was stupid. When Ji Feiyu said this, he clearly had confidence in his heart. Damn it, did Qin Xiong and the others really go back and spout nonsense? Ji Feitong's expression turned ugly, and Ji Fighting's brows instantly furrowed. Before they came, they really thought that Ji Feiyu had taken a liking to Luo Qingtong and that Mo Zhuling had broken off the engagement because he knew about it. Ji Feiyu was so confident that he clearly wasn't afraid of them investigating. Ji Fighting suddenly felt very uneasy as he thought about it. Qin Xiong and the others were idiots. Why couldn't they find a better excuse? They originally thought that they could humiliate Ji Feiyu, but they didn't expect that there would be no such thing. They even swore solemnly when they came back. They even provided the girl's portrait, but in the end they told a lie that could be easily exposed. They were simply brainless fools. Ji Fighting didn't show it on his face. Instead he smiled at Ji Feiyu and said, "Cousin, why are you so angry? Feitong is anxious because of his family Ji. Even though he acted rashly and offended you, cousin, can you forgive him on account of his extenuating circumstances?" As for the Star Alliance breaking off the engagement, he paused. It wasn't clear whether it was intentional or not, but he purposely dragged out the words breaking off the engagement. Then he chuckled and said, "It's fine. Since the Star Alliance doesn't know how to appreciate favors, then there's no need for us to investigate. I absolutely believe in you." Of course, he didn't know whether the people in his family believed him or not. Ji Fighting's expression was indifferent. He wasn't like Ji Feitong and the others. There was no need for him to find fault with Ji Feiyu. If Ji Feiyu said that he didn't break off the engagement because he fell in love with someone else, then he didn't break off the engagement because he fell in love with someone else. What did it matter whether they believed him or not? It was fine as long as the family didn't believe him. Moreover, Ji Feiyu was so concerned about the woman beside him. If he said that there was nothing between them, who would believe him? Just as Ji Feitong said, no one would believe him. Since that was the case, what was the need for an investigation? Instead, it cleared Ji's name and cleared his name. Why did he have to do such a thing? Before Ji could say anything, Luo Qingtong's voices heard. She looked at Ji Fighting indifferently and said, "This Ji family disciple speaks well, but even so, we still have to check what needs to be checked. Don't let others think that you're deliberately protecting us. At that time we'll have to bear another crime and we'll implicate you for no reason. How terrible would that be?" Luo Qingtong smiled at Ji Fighting and said, "Seniority is important. Even if you are worried about Ji Feiyu, you still have to pay attention to seniority, right? Shouldn't he be punished for insulting his brother? Or is this how the family Ji works? Do you think you can say whatever you want? This is worse for the family Ji, isn't it?" Luo Qingtong's words made Ji Feitong furious. *Tsich, what does this have to do with you? When Ji Fighting opened his mouth, he had already realized that this was not the time to argue with Ji Feiyu. Anyway, even if Ji Feiyu managed to convince them, what about the elders of the family Ji? In the end he had to suffer a little. But he didn't expect that Luo Qingtong would jump out while he was tolerating Ji Feiyu. Chapter 29:46. Ji Feitong's heart was filled with disdain. Originally, Luo Qingtong was still somewhat useful in his heart. He felt that he could use her to attack Ji Feiyu. However, it was obvious that she and Ji Feiyu were not the same. He was too lazy to waste any more effort on her. Who knew why an unknown girl from the 9-star region would hook up with Ji Feiyu? She even had to scheme to get close to a piece of trash. Who knew how desperate she was for him to eat? Or rather, how ambitious was she? How eager was she to achieve instant benefits? Ji Feitong snorted in disdain as he thought about it. He had seen many women like Luo Qingtong. She used Ji Feiyu's ladder to get close to them and then spoke rudely to arouse their interest, loosening the reins only to grasp them better? Unfortunately, they were tired of this kind of trick. However, the other party was not bad looking. It would be good if he could play with her for free. As Ji Feitong thought about it, he looked at Luo Qingtong with a lewd and frivolous look in his eyes. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. She looked at Ji Feitong and instantly laughed. Was he having ideas about her? Not bad. It seemed that this time at the family Ji would not be boring. There were always a few idiots who came to court death. It was also a kind of fun, wasn't it? As Luo Qingtong thought about it, the corners of her lips curled up slightly. It was indescribably evil and charming. Ji Feitong's heart skipped a beat when he saw it. Oh my god, I didn't realize that the woman that piece of trash Ji Feiyu brought back was a stunner. Ji Feitong's heart was itching. He was already restless, thinking about how to hook up with Luo Qingtong. If it didn't work, then he would use force. Would Ji Feiyu deal with him because of a woman? Of course, it didn't matter even if he did. What could a piece of trash like him do to him? He couldn't be a threat at all. It was impossible for the family to help Ji Feiyu. As Ji Feitong thought of this, he instantly felt a burst of pride. The way he looked at Luo Qingtong became even more wretched. Behind Luo Qingtong, Yen Yang clearly saw his gaze and instantly sneered in her heart. How dare the other party have designs on her master? She was simply courting death. She looked at Chu Tianyi, who was beside her, and said, "When you arrive at the family Ji, remember to protect master well." Originally, there was no need for Yen Yang to instruct this matter. Generally, the people around Luo Qingtong would do this. However, Chu Tianyi was temporarily sold to Luo Qingtong. Moreover, the reason why she sold herself was related to her. She was not sincerely working for Luo Qingtong. Yen Yang was worried that his carelessness would cause Luo Qingtong to encounter danger. After all, Luo Qingtong's strength was only at the Sage Master realm. She didn't know that Luo Qingtong's strength had already risen to the peak of the Purple Venerable realm. This was to make it easier for her to advance in the future. Moreover, in order to confuse the black fog behind Mo Zhuling, she deliberately suppressed her strength and didn't recover. Otherwise, with Luo Qingtong's strength, Ji Feitong wouldn't even dare to covet her. Even when he spoke, he would have to be respectful in front of Luo Qingtong. Moreover, Luo Qingtong's true strength was far beyond the 9th level of the Purple Venerable realm. When Yen Yang spoke, Chu Tianyi glanced at her and said, "What identity are you using to speak to me?" As he spoke, he didn't wait for Yen Yang to speak and continued to speak. "If you speak as my wife, then whatever you say is what it is." Chapter 2947. You. The moment Chu Tianyi's words left his mouth, Yen Yang felt a burst of anger. How could this man be so shameless? Why did she think that he was gentle, humorous, honest and considerate? Why did she think that he was someone she could spend the rest of her life with? Now, it seemed that he had made a mistake back then. Yen Yang was furious. She gritted her teeth and said, "Don't forget that you sold yourself to the master." "Yes, so I just need to make sure that she doesn't die?" Chu Tianyi raised his eyebrows and looked at her. He didn't think that he was wrong to take advantage of her. During this period of time, he knew that Yen Yang was stubborn and unyielding. If she decided on something, even 10 horses couldn't pull her back. Therefore, if he wanted to win her back, he had to use some means. And this means was Luo Qingtong's safety. In fact, Chu Tianyi knew clearly that Luo Qingtong's strength was not as weak as it seemed. Otherwise, she wouldn't let them stay in Star Alliance while she went back to Family Ji with Ji Feiyu. Chu Tianyi didn't believe that Luo Qingtong didn't know the possible danger of this trip. Therefore, she must have a way to deal with it. Yen Yang was just too concerned about her, so she was confused. However, even if Chu Tianyi knew this, he wouldn't tell Yen Yang. Otherwise, she wouldn't let him get close to her. Once Luo Qingtong finished what she wanted him to do, he didn't know if she would continue to stay by his side. Therefore, Chu Tianyi had to plan for himself. Speaking of which, he was helpless. As the overlord of Tianfeng region, he could only rely on threats to make the woman beside him listen to him. Not only that, she was very angry and didn't want to have anything to do with him. If people knew about it, they would be shocked. But he was defeated by this woman. What could he do? Chu Tianyi still remembered the scene when he was thrown into the dilapidated temple. Yen Yang was obviously scared to death and wanted to turn around and run away, but when she saw his body covered in blood, she couldn't bear to do so. She turned around and bandaged his wounds. It was because of her kindness that Chu Tianyi was able to survive. It was also because of her kindness that the medicinal effects that Chu Tianyi had been painstakingly suppressing went out of control after she touched him, pushing her to the ground and forcing himself on her. If it wasn't for that, Yen Yang would be fine. Because Chu Tianyi was still conscious at that time, he could still suppress the drug in his body. He didn't want to become a beast. Therefore, if Yen Yang had immediately left at that time, Chu Tianyi would have died from his serious injuries and being drugged, but Yen Yang would definitely have been fine. But Yen Yang's kindness saved him. Was life's body. Chu Tianyi's heart throbbed and he felt guilty. That day in front of him, Yen Yang was like a holy goddess, blooming breathtakingly. For so many years, Chu Tianyi didn't forget her for a moment. Instead, because of her departure, she was still fresh in his mind. Therefore he wanted to keep her by his side even if he had to do it by hook or by crook. When Chu Tianyi said that, Yin Yang was even angrier. Chapter 29:48. She was extremely depressed in her heart. She wanted to curse Chu Tianyi, but after tossing and turning, other than that shameless word, she couldn't say anything else. In fact, when she heard the word madam, her heart skipped a beat. Chu Tianyi didn't know that she had really considered marrying Lin Yi. After Luo Qingtong brought back the news about Chu Lingfeng, she had already decided that after meeting Chu Lingfeng and asking for his opinion, she would tell Lin Yi everything and see if he would accept her. Who would have thought that before she could meet Chu Lingfeng, Chu Tianyi's identity was exposed? Yin Yang didn't know how to face him. The person she was attracted to and the person she hated were the same person. How could she accept this? When Yin Yang spoke, Chu Tianyi's heart was filled with joy. Because Yin Yang's words meant that he could call her madam. He was finally one step closer to her. Although this step was a result of his meticulous planning, he was still very happy. Okay, don't worry, I will stay by her side. Of course you have to stay by my side too, madam. As Chu Tianyi said this, he looked deeply at Yin Yang. Yin Yang turned her head and ignored him, but her heart was in turmoil. She wasn't as indifferent as she looked. Lin Yi and Chu Tianyi, these two people faintly overlapped with each other, making Yin Yang's heart uncontrollably flustered. When Yin Yang and Chu Tianyi were talking in a low voice, Ji Fighting had already ordered Ji Feitong to apologize to Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu. No matter what, Ji Feiyu had the identity of a legitimate son. They could be disrespectful to him in private, but there was no need to do so in front of outsiders. Why leave a weakness for the other party to use against him? In any case, Ji Feiyu's status as the son of the first wife wouldn't last for long. When the time came, they would have plenty of opportunities to deal with him. Why should they be in such a hurry? Therefore, Ji Fighting very generously apologized to Luo Qingtong, saying that he didn't think it through, and asked his subordinates to immediately go to Star Alliance to investigate the annulment of the engagement. In fact, wasn't it up to him to decide how to investigate this matter and how long it would take? So what if Luo Qingtong planned for Ji Feiyu? Wasn't he still unable to defeat him? Ji Fighting's expression was indifferent. He sneered in his heart. He didn't take Luo Qingtong's words seriously at all. Luo Qingtong also saw the sarcasm in his eyes and naturally knew what the other party was thinking. However, she had just spoken because she couldn't stand the hypocritical behavior of these fake immortals. She deliberately exposed this matter so as to dampen their spirit. As for whether Ji Fighting would send people to investigate, what the results would be, and when he would reply, she didn't consider it at all. After all, there was a saying, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. If these people from the family Ji really wanted to deal with Ji Feiyu and her, they would do it for any reason. It didn't matter whether they investigated or not. Therefore she smiled and didn't care at all. Under Ji Fighting's scolding, Ji Feitong also apologized to Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu. He coveted Luo Qingtong, so he didn't reject apologizing to her. On the contrary, when he apologized to Ji Feiyu, he felt very dissatisfied and perfunctory. Ji Feiyu couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. In this matter, the one who was implicated the most was Luo Qingtong. As long as the other party apologized to Luo Qingtong, he couldn't be bothered with anything else. The group of people continued on their way to the family Ji. Chapter 29:49. In the family Ji, a group of people was waiting in the ancestral hall. Father. A very pretty and cute girl stood beside the head of the family Ji and said to him, Ji Feiyu has embarrassed us so much this time. You can't tolerate him because he's the son of the first wife. Otherwise, what will happen to our family Ji's reputation? As Ji Miao Miao said this, she glanced at the middle-aged man beside the head of the family Ji. The middle-aged man's expression was ugly. He looked at her and said in a low voice, is definitely not someone who would disregard the family for personal affairs. The middle-aged man's left arm was obviously seriously injured. It could only hang by his side, looking very uncoordinated. His originally tall and sturdy figure had also become much shorter and hunched because of the existence of this arm. This middle-aged man was Ji Feiyu's father, the original successor of the family Ji Yuanqing. Originally, he should have been the head of the family Ji at this moment. But now he could only sit in the upper left corner. Moreover, he was here because the family Ji wanted to hold a grand ancestral hall meeting with Ji Feiyu. Otherwise, he would not even have the opportunity to sit at the front. Sitting beside him was Ji Feiyu's mother. The latter's face was very noble and generous. He sat upright beside Ji Yuanqing. Even the mistress of the family, the wife of the head of the Ji family, was suppressed. After all, Ji Feiyu's mother was not an ordinary person. She had married into the family Ji's family from another galaxy. She was the daughter of the first wife of that family. Originally, she could have married an ordinary son of the seven-star field. However, she had taken a fancy to Ji Yuanqing and married into the family despite the family's objections. It was because of her that Ji Feiyu and his son could live so well without the strength and status of a direct descendant. At this moment she looked at the family Ji and said, "That's right. It's best that you don't wantonly slander things that haven't been investigated." Ji Miao Miao couldn't help but chuckle. Then she said, "Auntie Li, don't blame me for being rude." Qin Xiong and the others came back and explained everything clearly. They even provided a portrait of that woman. "You still say that this is not the truth? Could it be that you want to say that Qin Xiong and the others are so stupid to make up such a lie that can be easily broken to deal with my eldest cousin brother? Are they out of their minds?" In fact, it wasn't that Qin Xiong and the others had lost their minds. They simply didn't think that Ji Feiyu and the others would be able to leave the wedding banquet alive, let alone reverse the situation and ruin Mo Zhuling's reputation. Who would have thought that a trash like Ji Feiyu would be able to rely on Luo Qingtong's ability to turn the tables? They didn't even dare to dream about it. Therefore, when they went back, they naturally and scrupulously slandered and discredited Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu to get away with it. At this moment, when they heard Ji Miao Miao's voice, although they felt guilty, they still said firmly, "That's right. Miss Miao Miao is right. We can't say such a lie that can be easily broken. Young Master Feiyu did fall in love with that girl called Luo Xiaoqi. That's why the Star Alliance's eldest daughter broke off the engagement. This is absolutely true. If the family head and elders don't believe us, you can go to the Star Alliance to check." Chapter 2950. What's more, so what if they went for an inspection? Would Mo Zhuling's people say that she was shameless and had seduced young Master Lu of the seven-star field, which was why she broke off the engagement with Ji Feiyu? That was impossible. Therefore they looked very certain. When their voices sounded, Li Shuyi's expression also relaxed a little. She absolutely believed that her son would not be so careless. But what if he really met the girl he liked and did everything he could to be with her? But the girl he met on the way, how coincidental would it be for Ji Feiyu to fall in love with her, and when he went to ask for her hand in marriage, he loved her so much? Li Shuyi was worried. She was not afraid that Ji Feiyu would be punished by the family, but she was afraid that he would be deceived by others. That girl might have been deliberately arranged by someone to wait for him there. And Feiyu was completely unaware. In the future he might be sad and hurt. As Li Shuyi thought of this, her heart suddenly throbbed with an indescribable pain, and her eyes turned slightly red. At this moment, Ji Yuanqing's hand grabbed hers and gently patted and comforted her. "It's okay. When the time comes we will leave the family Ji. I think that after we leave no one will come to deal with us anymore." As Ji Yuanqing said this, his eyes were slightly red. He was a dignified man, but at this moment he actually had the urge to cry. He tried his best to hold it in, not revealing any clues. But his heart was extremely sour. He had been so high-spirited all his life. Even when he suddenly met with an unexpected disaster and lost his position as the head of the family and only had the name of a direct descendant, he had never given up on it. But this time he was tired. Ji Feiyu had been ridiculed since he was young. As a father he could not give him anything. The identity of a direct descendant and the power of the head of the family, he had nothing. And Ji Feiyu had been humiliated and ridiculed because of his identity as a direct descendant. If he wasn't his son, even if he was a trash who couldn't cultivate, he wouldn't have suffered so much slander and humiliation, right? Even now, when Ji Feiyu had been pushed out to marry Mo Zhuling, there were still people who wanted to harm him. Ji Yuanqing was really tired. For the sake of his status as a direct descendant, he had persevered and worked hard for a long time. He refused to believe that he could only live like this for the rest of his life. But as it turned out, that was exactly what he was. Lost strength could never be regained. No matter how talented he was in the past, no matter how glorious his family Ji's descendants were, they could not hide the fact that they had fallen. As Ji Yuanqing thought this, his heart was filled with exhaustion. Hearing his voice, Li Shuyi's heart immediately felt even more bitter. She held Ji Yuanqing's hand and said in a low and bitter voice, "Okay, when the time comes, we'll leave together and never care about the family Ji again." Just as they were talking, there was a commotion outside. It was Luo Qingtong Ji Feiyu and Ji fighting. Luo Qingtong Ji Feiyu, and the others walked through the door of the family Ji together. Yen Yang and Chu Tianyi walked behind her. The two of them were side by side. With Yen Yang holding the white jade zither in her hand, she looked like Luo Qingtong's servant girl. Chu Tianyi's aura was also deeply restrained and not revealed. Chapter 2951. Ji Feitong didn't take them seriously at all. When Luo Qingtong and others entered the family Ji, he pretended to approach her by accident and whispered in her ear, "Luo Xiaoqi." Ji Feitong licked his lips. When he got close to Luo Qingtong, he found that this woman was a feast for the eyes. She had a unique aura, which was as noble and unpretentious as a saintess, but also as evil and charming as a demon god. These two different auras were entangled in Luo Qingtong, which was as attractive as a poppy. Ji Feitong thought to himself, no wonder Ji Feiyu is so protective of this woman. She does have a little capital. But she was so stupid to go back to the family Ji with Ji Feiyu. Did she want to help him prove that it was not his fault that the engagement was broken off this time? Unfortunately, the family Ji might not believe it. What was more, Ji Feiyu's father, the head of the family Ji Yuanquan, had been waiting to deal with Ji Feiyu and his father. But they hadn't found a chance. This time, such a good opportunity came to them. How could they let it go? Ji Feiyu was destined to not be able to escape from this matter. Not only that, Luo Qingtong, who came with him and was involved in this matter, would also be the target of the family Ji's anger. At that time she would end up miserable. With that thought in mind, he said to Luo Qingtong frivolously and arrogantly, "Luo Xiaoqi, how about being my woman and following me? As long as you are with me, I'll make sure you'll be safe in the family Ji. You probably don't know that Ji Feiyu can't escape this disaster. The head of the family Ji and brother fighting have been waiting to deal with him for a long time. No matter what the reason is, it won't affect the family's punishment on him. And you, the suspected culprit, will be greatly angered. If you are with me, I'll beg brother fighting and ask them to give you to me. What do you think?" As he spoke, he looked at Luo Qingtong up and down lustfully. Luo Qingtong was crossing the threshold of the family Ji behind Ji Feiyu and the others. Hearing his words, she smiled and looked at him. "Be your woman? I'm afraid you're not qualified. It's better if you let me be your mistress. Then you'll be the lowest slave. Maybe I'll consider it." As she spoke, she moved closer to Ji Feitong. She breathed Ji Feiyu's eyes when she was close to him. Yet, Luo Qingtong's words were like a ladle of water, drenching him in the heart. Not only that, but he was also extremely furious. When he was about to shout angrily, Ji Feiyu, who noticed the movement behind him, rushed to Luo Qingtong and blocked him, saying coldly, "Ji Feiyu, what are you doing?" His voice was cold. After Sueyu and the others arrived, they were ready to fight. Looking at Ji Feiyu and the others, Ji Feiyu swallowed the anger and resentment in his heart. Then he looked at Luo Qingtong coldly and sneered, "What are you doing?" "Of course I'm reminding Luo Xiaoqi. Miss Luo, our family Ji is not a place where you can come and go as you please." Chapter 2952. As Ji Feitong spoke, he looked at Luo Qingtong with an extremely cold gaze. This B*TCH really didn't know how to appreciate favors. She refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. In that case, don't blame me for being impolite. Let's see how she will kneel and beg me then. With that thought, he immediately snorted coldly and strode forward. On the other hand, Ji Feiyu looked at Luo Qingtong worriedly and asked, "Little Seven, are you all right?" He blamed himself in his heart. He was just about to go back to the family Ji. He was worried about his parents and unconsciously walked faster. He forgot that Luo Qingtong was still behind him. Otherwise, Ji Feitong wouldn't have had the chance to get close to Luo Qingtong. "I'm fine." Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and chuckled. She meaningfully put away a medicine bottle in her sleeve. The information revealed by Ji Feitong was quite interesting. Ji Fighting's father, the head of the family Ji? Luo Qingtong looked at Ji Feiyu and the others walking in front of her and asked Ji Feiyu, "Is Ji Fighting the person who replaced your position as the young master?" "Yes." Ji Feiyu nodded. His tone was a little difficult. He looked at Luo Qingtong and didn't know why she asked this. He was the legitimate son of the family Ji, but his status in the family Ji was actually lower than that of the collateral family members. He only had the title of being the legitimate son of the family Ji. In fact, it didn't live up to the name at all. The young master of the family Ji was Ji Fighting. He announced to the public that he had no choice but to occupy this position, so he wouldn't address others as the young master. But in fact, who didn't know that he was the young master of the family Ji? It didn't matter if Ji Fighting wanted this title or not. But with this title, it was difficult for him to move forward. Ji Feiyu's status in the family Ji was awkward. No one knew about it. Every day he faced the slander of the family Ji and outsiders. Everyone said that Ji Fighting was tolerant and magnanimous. Ji Yuankuan knew his place. They said that he didn't know his place because he was the legitimate son. But this was not what he wanted at all. Ji Fighting and his son stepped on him and his father's name to climb up the ladder, but they didn't forget to make them be despised. Ji Feiyu didn't know what he and his father had done wrong to be treated like this by Ji Fighting and his son. If they snatched everything he had, he wouldn't say anything. After all, the winner was the kings and the losers. But why did Ji Fighting and his father want outsiders to think that they were oppressed when they had everything? Did they think G's, G to G's, G and G's to 2's? As Ji Feiyu thought about it, the light in his eyes became obscure. On the surface, Ji Fighting respected him in every way and earned a good reputation. But in private, if it weren't for him and Ji Yuankuan's instructions, why would Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing's life in the family Ji be so difficult? This wasn't tolerance. This was hypocrisy and pretentiousness. They were fishing for fame. However, Ji Feiyu couldn't expose them. For the sake of his parents, he could only endure it. Okay, I understand. Luo Qingtong nodded and didn't look at Ji Fighting and the others anymore. It was fine as long as she understood who the main enemy was. Luo Qingtong didn't want to waste her limited time on people who didn't matter. Since Ji Fighting was the young master of the family Ji, Ji Feiyu's illness might have something to do with him. Luo Qingtong's thinking was very simple. There was no love, hatred, and hostility in this world for no reason. Chapter 2953. The first thing that Luo Qingtong needed to investigate was Ji Fighting and the others. But it didn't matter. There was no rush. She needed to get over Ji Feiyu's current hurdle first. She had to clear this green tea bitch's name from the inside out. Luo Qingtong thought as she continued to walk with Ji Feiyu and the others. Yin Yang's face was red. She followed behind Luo Qingtong and kept struggling. Beside her was Chu Tianyi, who was tightly hugging her and imprisoning her. "Lin Yi, you bastard!" Yin Yang roared in a low voice. She was still used to calling Chu Tianyi Lin Yi. At this moment she was struggling furiously in Chu Tianyi's arms. "Why don't you let me teach that trash Ji Feitong a lesson?" She gritted her teeth and shouted at Chu Tianyi. When Ji Feitong spoke to Luo Qingtong just now, she wanted to take action. An ignorant piece of trash actually dared to covet her master. How dare he ask her master to be his woman? Yin Yang's face was filled with anger, but Chu Tianyi's face was extremely calm. Not only that, Yin Yang's struggling and biting were useless to him. He was even happy that she was in his arms. But of course he couldn't let Yin Yang know about this. He said to Yin Yang calmly, "Of course I don't want you to ruin Master's plan." Chu Tianyi followed Yin Yang and called Luo Qingtong Master. He had no choice. The contract was in her hands. What's more, Chu Tianyi found that Yin Yang valued Luo Qingtong very much. No matter how many good words he said to her, she turned a blind eye. After calling Luo Qingtong Master, she immediately looked at him seriously. In order to get his wife, Chu Tianyi could only risk it all. So be it if you're shameless. With that thought in mind, he continued, "Master obviously came to the family Ji for another purpose. Otherwise he could have just brought Ji Feiyu back to the family Ji. Why did he have to go through so much trouble and come back alone with Ji Feiyu? Don't act rashly and ruin Master's plans." Hu Yinyang was taken aback by his words, but she quickly calmed down. "Let go," she said coldly to Chu Tianyi. Then she snorted and said, "You're really happy calling me master. Let me tell you, you've only sold your body for a year. You're not qualified to call me master." So who was the one who complained that he wasn't loyal enough? However, Chu Tianyi would never take the blame for Yin Yang. He even immediately seized the opportunity and said, "Well, as long as Madam is willing, I will sell myself for as many years as you want. Your husband," as he spoke, he looked at Yin Yang meaningfully and said, "I will listen to you." Shameless. Yin Yang glared fiercely at Chu Tianyi. Then she took her white jade zither and ran away. Looking at her leaving figure, Chu Tianyi chuckled. Then he slowly followed behind her and walked into the depths of the family Ji. He liked this kind of life very much. He had never seen Yin Yang like this, nor did he have the delusion to see her like this. She was angry and angry in front of him. Did it mean that she was no longer indifferent to him? As Chu Tianyi thought about it, he suddenly felt that selling himself to Luo Qingtong was the best choice he had ever made. It gave him a sense of accomplishment and excitement more than destroying the competing forces in the Tianfeng region. Chapter 2954. When Luo Qingtong, Ji Feiyu, and the others entered the family Ji, the family Ji's people immediately came forward to bring Ji Feiyu to the ancestral hall. These people didn't know that Ji Feiyu and the others came back by themselves. They thought that Ji fighting had brought them back. They were originally going to use the method of escorting them, but they were all sent flying by Sueyu and the others. Let's see who dares to touch our young master. They looked angrily at the family Ji's guards who rushed forward. Ji fighting looked at them and immediately frowned. Then he asked the family Ji's people to leave. I'm sorry, cousin. I frightened you. This is my negligence. I didn't expect them to be so disrespectful to you. Don't worry. I'll explain it to my father later. He smiled at Ji Feiyu. Then he scolded the family Ji's people and left. Luo Qingtong looked at them and immediately smiled. She said slowly, it was indeed too negligent. Young master fighting, as the future heir of the family Ji, don't you even have this little bit of means to control your subordinates? I think those people from the 9-star region don't even dare to fart if the heir of the family doesn't say anything. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Ji fighting's method of buying people's hearts was not bad. First he let those people offend Ji Feiyu. When Ji Feiyu's people attacked, he would come out to help them out and apologize. After that, he would apologize to the family Ji's people who were scolded by him. At that time he would be the good guy and the bad guy, and he would still curry favor with both sides. Whether Ji Feiyu and the others were willing or not, they would have to accept his favor. And those who were scolded by Ji Feiyu would also hate Ji Feiyu and the others. Instead they would think of his kindness. Tsk. This method was brilliant. No wonder Ji Feiyu's expression was so subtle when he mentioned Ji fighting. The other party's scheming methods were quite skillful. Ji Feiyu and the rest were treated as his stepping stones, and there was no way to reason with them. Otherwise he would end up with a reputation of not knowing what was good for him. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, the smile on her face became even sweeter. When Luo Qingtong spoke, Ji Feiyu's expression changed drastically. He didn't know whether Luo Qingtong's words were coincidental or not, but they hit the nail on the head. His original intention was to use Ji Feiyu and the others as a raft to buy people's hearts. However, Luo Qingtong saw through the crux of the matter at a glance. She actually used the excuse of lax management to block him. That's right, Ji fighting's behavior just now seemed to be magnanimous, but if one looked carefully, it seemed that he didn't even have the ability to restrain these people. Otherwise, why didn't he reprimand those people before they attacked Ji Feiyu? Was it because he didn't want to scold him, or was it because he couldn't? Ji fighting would never admit to the first possibility. His gentle, humble, courteous, and friendly image as the heir of the family must not be destroyed. Thus, he could only acquiesce to the second possibility. However, for a family heir to be lax in managing his subordinates, this was a very serious matter to outsiders. Because this meant that the other party was gentle but not bold enough to support the entire family. The faint smile and sense of superiority on Ji fighting's face froze. He had always been high and mighty in front of Ji Feiyu. However, at this moment he was at a disadvantage in front of Ji Feiyu because of Luo Qingtong's words. Chapter 2955. Eldest brother, why are you still here? Why don't you go into the ancestral hall? Father and the others are getting impatient from waiting. Ji Miao Miao appeared in front of Luo Qingtong and the others with a group of family Ji's guards. At this time, Luo Qingtong and the others had already entered the family Ji's ancestral hall while talking. They happened to bump into each other at the entrance. Luo Qingtong immediately raised her eyebrows and looked at the arrogant and gorgeous Ji Miao Miao. After the latter came out, she walked straight to Ji fighting and the others with her guards. She didn't even look at Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu. She only glanced at them when they were mentioned. I heard from the guards who just came back that Ji Feiyu wanted to defy orders and didn't want to return to the family Ji's ancestral hall? When Ji Miao Miao mentioned Ji Feiyu, she didn't care and didn't show any respect for him. She was Ji Yuanquan's only daughter, the real family Ji's precious daughter who grew up with great care. So what if she was disrespectful to Ji Feiyu, the son of the first wife? In the entire family Ji except for Ji fighting, who had to set himself up for outsiders to see, who really cared about Ji Feiyu and his son, the so-called direct descendants? The Ji family of today was no longer the glorious Ji family of the past, which had produced many talented people and was no longer the Ji family of the past. Now the collateral branch of the family Ji was in charge. Moreover, it was when Ji Feiyu's father's strength was almost crippled. The elders of the Ji family begged the Ji family to let their father take over the position. Under such circumstances, who would dare to do anything to her? Ji Fighting needed to put on an act, but she didn't. When she heard her words, Luo Qingtong immediately chuckled. She looked at Ji Fighting and said, "Young master of the family Ji is really scheming. It seems that not only can you not control your servants, you can't even control your own sister. Then you don't have to put on an act in front of us. We all know that the young master of the family Ji is you. Young master of the family Ji doesn't need to put on an act. Sometimes you overdo it just like..." At this point Luo Qingtong's lips curled up. Then she looked at Ji Fighting and the rest and said slowly, "Just like fools." When she said this, Ji Miao Miao, who did not know what had happened, looked at Luo Qingtong and said coldly, "Who do you think you are? How dare you call my brother a fool?" Her voice was cold. However, the moment she spoke, Luo Qingtong's smile became even more gorgeous and enchanting. She chuckled and said to Ji Miao Miao, "I'm talking about people who cover up too much. That's strange. Young master of the family Ji, you're the one who put on the act. Are you blaming me for not being able to say that? If I say that there's a puddle of dog poop by the roadside, are you going to say that you pooped it?" The smile on her lips was devilish. Ji Feiyu and the others thought that she would have a conflict with Ji Miao Miao and the others. They didn't expect her to say such a thing. Instantly the people who rushed over to protect her slipped. Sueyu and the others especially almost fell to the ground. Chapter 2956. Even Ji Feiyu couldn't help but smirk at her words. He looked at Luo Qingtong with sparkling eyes. In other people's eyes, Luo Qingtong's behavior might be arrogant and vulgar, but in Ji Feiyu's eyes, it was indescribably cute. After all, it wasn't the first time that Ji Fighting and Ji Miao Miao had stepped on his head and humiliated him while pretending to be magnanimous to apologize. Every time Ji Miao Miao spoke ill of him, Ji Fighting would come forward to apologize at the right time, saying that he didn't teach his sister well. Ji Miao Miao was still young, so Ji Feiyu shouldn't lower himself to her level. But in reality, Ji Miao Miao had already passed her coming-of-age ceremony. She was still young? Not to mention, every time Ji Fighting would only apologize after he was humiliated and offended. At the same time he would ask the people who humiliated and offended him to leave. On the surface, it was a reprimand, but in reality there was no punishment at all. Ji Feiyu suffered humiliation and drew hatred, but the one who benefited in the end was Ji Fighting. Ji Fighting had seen enough of him being wantonly humiliated and offended, so he came out to smooth things over and let people praise his good reputation. And Ji Feiyu and the others had no choice but to accept his kindness. There were even a few times when Sueyu and the others couldn't help but attack, but they were reprimanded by Ji Fighting. If it weren't for Ji Feiyu's vigilance, Sueyu and the others might have been killed by Ji Fighting at that time. Ji Feiyu lived like walking on thin ice in his family Ji, but he had to endure for the sake of his parents. Now that he saw the two of them being humiliated by Luo Qingtong and their fake faces falling out, he felt really happy. He stood there and looked at Luo Qingtong with a smile on his lips. When Ji Miao Miao heard Luo Qingtong's words, she was stunned at first. Then her face suddenly darkened. She looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold expression and shouted angrily, "Bastard, how dare you call me a dog?" Because Ji Miao Miao had learned her lesson from Luo Qingtong's counterattack, she didn't say it out loud. Otherwise, in Luo Qingtong's mouth, she would be the one who made the connection. This bitch was actually so scheming. Ji Miao Miao gritted her teeth. That breath was stuck in her throat. She didn't know if she should go up or down. She felt a burst of panic in her heart. She swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She then sneered at Luo Qingtong and said coldly, "Good. All right." She sneered as she sized up Luo Qingtong. Then she said to Ji Feiyu, "Eldest cousin, the person you brought back this time is amazing. Is she your lover, Luo Xiaoqi? The fox spirit that Qin Xiong and the others were talking about?" Ji Miao Miao's eyes were filled with malice as she spoke. She looked at Luo Qingtong and said coldly, "I didn't expect you to be so powerful. No wonder you could seduce my eldest cousin to death for you. He even abandoned his engagement with Mo Zhuling. What? Did you come here this time to strike while the iron is hot, directly become my eldest cousin's wife, and officially move into our family, Ji? You've got a good plan. Why don't you take a look and see if you have the fate to bear it?" Ji Miao Miao's voice was cold. Her words had a double meaning. She was very disdainful and sneering at Luo Qingtong. From her point of view, Luo Qingtong had done everything possible to be with Ji Feiyu and even ruined his engagement with Mo Zhuling. She had seduced him so much that he was willing to do anything for her. He even brought her to the family Ji. Didn't he just want to move into the family Ji? Chapter 2957. Ji Feiyu's figure flashed to Luo Qingtong's side. He looked at Ji Miao Miao coldly and said, "Show some respect, Ji Miao Miao. She's not my lover, nor is she a vixen." Ji Feiyu's heart was filled with anger. If Ji Fighting and his sister wanted to do anything, they could just come at him. What was the point of dragging Luo Qingtong into this? They always targeted the people around him. In the past it was Sueyu and the others. Now it was Luo Qingtong. How could they be so insidious and shameless? While Ji Feiyu's heart was filled with anger, Ji Miao Miao looked at his protective posture and immediately sneered. She looked at Ji Feiyu with a chuckle and said viciously, "Eldest cousin, you're already so protective of her. How dare you say that she's not your lover?" Oh, Auntie Li and the others said the same thing inside. They said that you would never disregard the family's reputation for a private affair. But now that you've brought her back, I'm sure they have nothing else to say. Otherwise they'll say that we're using our power to control the family Ji to oppress you. In fact, we're doing this for your own good. After all, she had a wicked smile on her face as she said to Ji Feiyu, "Eldest cousin, you're just a piece of trash. If you don't have the tempering of the family's fickleness, how can you withstand the invasion of those outside rumors? We're doing this for your sake, eldest cousin. Unfortunately, you and Auntie Li seem to have let us down." As Ji Miao Miao said this, the smile on her face became even more malicious. At this moment she was stepping on Ji Feiyu's sore spot and ruthlessly crushing it. Didn't he care a lot about the woman in front of him? He couldn't wait to come out and protect her. Unfortunately, what was the use of a good-for-nothing like him coming out? If it weren't for the fact that her father and brother still needed a legitimate reason to abolish the family Ji's direct line of descent and give them a chance to take over the family, she would have already ordered people to arrest them. A bunch of ignorant people. Ji Feiyu was stupid, and that woman called Luo Shaoqi was also stupid. Did she really think that she would be able to find a good place just because she hooked up with Ji Feiyu? She even dared to follow him back to the family Ji and strut around in front of him. Ji Miao Miao sneered. Ji Feiyu's face also turned slightly pale, not because Ji Miao Miao had stepped on his sore spot, but because he heard her say that his parents were also here. So, because of him, father and mother were still implicated in the end? Ji Feiyu's heartache could already imagine how much ridicule and humiliation Ji Yuanqing and Li Shuyi had experienced after being called to the family Ji. Originally, his body couldn't cultivate, which had already brought them a lot of criticism and trouble. For so many years, Ji Yuanqing and Li Shuyi had been running around outside for the sake of his body. If it wasn't necessary, Ji Feiyu absolutely didn't want them to worry about him. Therefore he had always suffered in the family Ji in silence and didn't allow Sueyu and the others to inform Ji Yuanqing and the others. But now the fact that his engagement was broken off still alarmed them. Chapter 2958. That was where the ancestral tablets of the family Ji were placed. At the same time, it was also the place where the family Ji's people usually organized ancestral worship. Ji Yuanqing and the rest of the family Ji's people should be there. When he turned to leave, Ji Miao Miao thought that he was provoked by her words, so he did not even dare to answer and hurriedly rushed to the main courtyard of the ancestral hall. "Pfft." She sneered and said carelessly, "Don't you think it's too late to plead with father and the others now?" She looked indescribably proud. Her hibiscus-like face was full of harshness and viciousness. After saying these words, she looked at Luo Qingtong and said indifferently, "Luo Xiaoqi, right? I advise you to hurry up and kneel with Ji Feiyu. Maybe you can beg my father to let you go. Otherwise, tsk. She looked at Luo Qingtong and then suddenly sneered. Then she looked at Ji Fighting and said, "Brother, let's go. Father and the others are still waiting for us. There's no need to waste time on some dubious people who we don't even know if they're dead or alive." Her words instantly degraded Luo Qingtong into the mud. So what if she was eloquent? So what if she was scheming? So what if she saw through their insincerity and hypocrisy towards Ji Feiyu? This was their family Ji. She was just a girl from a low-level star region who came from nowhere, but she dared to be presumptuous in front of her. Did she really think that she was invincible just because she had a sharp tongue and Ji Feiyu's protection? Unfortunately, Ji Feiyu, the son of the first wife, could not even keep his position in the family Ji. Not to mention her. As Ji Miao Miao said this, she glanced at Luo Qingtong with a very satisfied and noble expression and then walked to the main courtyard of the ancestral hall with Ji fighting. Behind them, Ji Feitong glanced at Luo Qingtong with a sneer and also left. This woman didn't know what was good for her. When they arrived at the main courtyard of the ancestral hall, she would suffer a lot. At that time, even if she knelt in front of him and begged him, he would not accept her. Who gave her the courage to talk back to Ji Miao Miao when she came from a low-level 9-star starfield? It was simply stupid beyond compare. Ji Feitong felt that even if he was mesmerized by her beauty, he would never fall for her again. He couldn't afford such a woman. Only that trash Ji Feiyu would be blind enough to take a fancy to her and protect her wholeheartedly. He wouldn't let anyone touch her. With this thought in mind, he immediately strode towards the main courtyard of the family Ji Hall. He didn't even spare a glance at Luo Qingtong. The latter's expression was indifferent. After they left, the corners of his lips curled up. Then she looked at Yen Yang and Chu Tianyi who had just arrived and said, "Let's go in too. Let's see what kind of drama is going on inside." As she said this, she leisurely walked towards the main courtyard of the family Ji Hall with Yen Yang and Chu Tianyi. After Ji Feiyu entered the main hall of the main courtyard, he immediately saw Ji Yuanqing, who was sitting on Ji Yuankuan's left. His eyes instantly reddened. At this moment, Ji Yuanqing and Li Shui also saw him and immediately stood up. Their voices were choked with joy and surprise. Chapter 2959. For nearly 5 years, Ji Yuanqing and Li Shui had been running around outside. For the sake of Ji Feiyu's health, they went around looking for doctors and medicine, looking for all kinds of rare treasures, just so that Ji Feiyu could cultivate again. Ji Yuanqing's health was not very good, so once the couple went out they rarely came back. Or rather, it was inconvenient for them to come out. Therefore, when they saw their son whom they had not seen for 5 years, their expressions were a little emotional. Ji Yuankuan, who was beside them, snorted coldly, then looked at an elder beside him. The latter understood and immediately stood up and said to Ji Feiyu, "Ji Feiyu, do you know your crime?" As soon as he said that, Ji Yuanqing and Li Shui's exposed emotions suddenly disappeared. They looked at the elder who spoke. Ji Yuanqing said in a deep voice, "Elder Dai, the matter has not been investigated clearly. What right do you have to convict our Yuer?" As soon as he said that, Ji Miao Miao's voice came from the entrance of the hall. "What is there to investigate clearly? Uncle, you don't know, but eldest cousin brother brought everyone back. He's behind us now. He'll come over later. This time, eldest cousin brother has done a great deed for our family Ji. Your direct line of descent will be able to continue very soon. I have to congratulate eldest cousin brother for bringing home the beauty." As she said that, she immediately walked in from the entrance of the hall with Ji fighting. The latter's expression was refined and polite. After entering the hall, he nodded and bowed to the elders present. Ji Miao Miao could be arrogant and disrespectful, but he, the future heir of the family Ji, could not. When their figures walked in, the expressions of the family Ji's elders immediately became gentle. "Fighting Miao Miao, you're back?" Elder Dai, who spoke, looked at the two of them and said amiably. Then, when he looked at Ji Yuanqing and Ji Feiyu, the expression on his face became much colder. "Ji Yuanqing, did you hear that? Isn't Miao Miao's words clear enough? Ji Feiyu even brought people back, and you still dare to say that he didn't do this? Instead of trying to defend him, you'd better think about how to explain this matter to your ancestors properly." Elder Dai's expression was cold and disdainful. "Since your generation, your direct line of descent has been very disappointing. So many people, no one could break through to the venerable realm. Not only that, but your strength regressed after breaking through. In the end, you even heavily injured your left arm and it can no longer be healed. That's fine, but when it comes to Ji Feiyu, he'll be another piece of trash. How many people have you been ridiculed? Now we're asking him to fulfill his family's promise. Does he feel that it's a waste for him to marry the daughter of an aristocratic family from a 9-star region? Why doesn't he look at his own strength? Could it be that he wants to marry the legitimate daughter of an aristocratic family from the Dongting region? It's a pity that even the legitimate daughter of an ordinary aristocratic family wouldn't like him." Elder Dai's expression was cold. In the end, he became more and more impolite, and he directly degraded Ji Feiyu to the bottom of the mud. In his opinion, it was already good enough for the family to let Ji Feiyu marry the daughter of an aristocratic family from a 9-star region. With Ji Feiyu's useless physique that could not cultivate in the Dongting region, he could only find a commoner girl to be with him. Chapter 2960. When his voice rang out, Ji Yuanqing's face was also livid with anger. He looked at Elder Dai and the others and said coldly, "Our direct descendants are disappointing. But for so many years, if it weren't for our direct descendants who established this family Ji, you wouldn't be able to yell at us here. My son who he likes, it's up to him to decide. When the family asked him to propose back then, didn't they not inform me? You used my son as a scapegoat. Now that his engagement has been broken off and he has suffered all kinds of humiliation, he has come all the way back, and you only care about holding him accountable. Alright, since you insist on bickering, then I'll ask you. This engagement, who set it up in the first place? Does it have anything to do with our Yuer? Why should he go and ask for her hand? I didn't speak before and you all treated me as a cripple. Since that's the case, then I'll open my mouth today. Whoever set up the engagement should go and propose. Today, I will definitely avenge the humiliation my son suffered. You want us to explain in front of our ancestors? Fine. Ji Yuanqing's life will end here. My son has embarrassed the family Ji. We are willing to plead guilty and accept punishment. But the person who set the engagement, pushed my son out to propose and humiliated the family today, should he also come out to receive punishment? Who pushed my son out? All of you King stand out. Ji Yuanqing's eyes were blood red. With a thud, a long saber was stabbed into the mud by him. Although his left arm was crippled and his strength hadn't improved at all, and he couldn't compare to the other branch family members of the same age, he wasn't a complete cripple. His strength was amazing back then, and he was many times stronger than the direct descendants of the family in the entire Dongting region. To put it bluntly, the current head of the family Ji Yuanqing, was not even qualified to carry a saber for him back then. Now that he had encountered an unexpected disaster, his personality had changed a lot. However, the hot-bloodedness of the past was still present. Now that this elder Dai had belittled Ji Feiyu both openly and covertly, his hot-bloodedness erupted in an instant. As soon as he spoke, Elder Dai and the others were stunned. Indeed, the current Ji Yuanqing did not even have the qualifications to be on equal footing with them. However, no one had forgotten how high-spirited Ji Yuanqing was back then. In front of him, all of them had to bow their heads. They didn't even have the chance to look up at him. If it weren't for the fact that Ji Yuanqing encountered a huge change in his cultivation later on, causing his cultivation to stagnate. Even now, they still had to kneel in front of him and respectfully call him family head. Now that they saw him fly into a rage, everyone immediately recalled Ji Yuanqing's appearance back then. Immediately, they were unable to recover from their shock. Meanwhile, Elder Dai's face was flushed red. Not for anything else, but when Ji Feiyu went to marry Imo Zhuling back then, he was the one who jumped out the most. It could be said that Ji Feiyu's engagement to Imo Zhuling was completely pushed by him. And he did so naturally under Ji Yuanqing's instructions. Ji Feiyu's situation was actually not as bad as he had said. Even in the Dongting region, there were many direct descendants of the aristocratic families who wanted to marry him. Chapter 2961. But how could Ji Yuanqing allow Ji Feiyu to have contact with the aristocratic families of the Dongting region? Not even some small, inconspicuous aristocratic families. Not to mention the branch families of those high-ranking aristocratic families. Because if that was the case, he wouldn't be able to make a move against Ji Feiyu and the others. That was why he had set up a good show to make Ji Feiyu work for the family and marry Mo Zhuling. Otherwise, how could the Alliance Master of the Star Alliance, who was just a 9-star domain's Alliance Master, be able to form a marriage alliance with the Ji family whenever he wanted? Did their family Ji have no way to do anything? This was simply a joke. When Ji Yuanqing's voice rang out, the faces of the family Ji elders flushed red. This was because when they had decided to let Ji Feiyu marry Imo Zhuling, they had all agreed. It could be said that they had a part in Ji Yuanqing's words. At that moment, an elder flew into a rage out of humiliation and said, "It doesn't matter how this engagement was set in the first place. Ji Feiyu agreed to the family's request, so he should fulfill it. Otherwise, why would he have agreed to it in the first place?" As soon as he said this, he remembered that they hadn't given Ji Feiyu the right to refuse at that time and had only informed him of the matter. Immediately, his face turned a little green and then a little white. However, in the end he still stubbornly endured and said shamelessly, "Anyway, Ji Feiyu didn't explicitly refuse at that time, so it means that he agreed. In that case, now that the engagement has been broken off, it's his responsibility. How can you blame us? Ji Yuanqing, you didn't teach your son well, yet you blame us for giving him a chance to contribute to the family. As a father, you really don't know what you're doing." As soon as he said this, Ji Yuanqing's face became even more furious. At that moment Ji Feiyu's voice rang out. "Elder, you're right. This is indeed my fault. I shouldn't have cared about the kindness that the family Ji has taught me all these years. I shouldn't have done nothing for the family Ji after taking up so many resources from the family Ji. I shouldn't have thought that my parents would need your help when they needed it, so I didn't reject you immediately. It's my fault. I'm leaving the clan now. From now on, I have nothing to do with the family Ji. Regardless of whether it is mockery or ridicule, humiliation or trampling, I will bear it all alone. I will no longer let you all be humiliated. Please approve." Ji Feiyu's heart was filled with indescribable ridicule and exhaustion. This was a member of their family Ji. After his engagement was annulled and he was summoned back from afar, the first thing he did was not to ask for the reason, but to convict him. He would rather listen to Qin Xiong, who had betrayed his master, than spend time listening to his explanation. They were so aggressive, what else could he say? Naturally he would do as they wished. The only thing Ji Feiyu's heart ached was that he had persevered for so long in the family Ji, but in the end he still did not reduce the pressure on his parents. He still made them run around, work hard and worry for him. In the end he still made them experience belittling and slandering because of him. Ji Feiyu could not hold it in anymore. Why didn't he reject the engagement with Mo Zhuling back then? Did the family Ji give him the right to refuse? They only told him that he should marry Mo Zhuling. Chapter 2962. But for so many years, everything he ate, wore and used, including the resources he worked hard to cultivate, were all given to him by his parents. It had nothing to do with the family Ji. But even if he knew this, Ji Feiyu couldn't expose the family's words and expose this lie. Because Ji Yuanqing and Li Shuyi were running around outside, if they encountered danger he still needed the family to rescue them and give them a helping hand. Therefore he couldn't fall out with the family and could only silently bear it. But now, in this elder's words, it was as if he had asked for it himself. The family had given him a great kindness, but he didn't cherish it. Didn't they know the truth? Ji Feiyu didn't want to say anything anymore. He stood there, his posture straight. "Please punish me, family head." He looked at Ji Yuanqing and said in a low voice. He didn't want to argue with anyone anymore. As soon as he said that, the expressions of all the elders turned ugly. Ji Feiyu's words were even more humiliating than Ji Yuanqing's. He clearly admitted that it was his fault. But listening to his words, every word was full of hidden meanings. Family Ji's kindness to him? What kindness? Family Ji didn't worry about Ji Feiyu's food, clothing, housing and transportation at all. He was left to fend for himself. And they didn't even know where to start talking about resources. Ji Feiyu was a good-for-nothing. What kind of cultivation resources did he need? He didn't have any at all, okay? And all the efforts made to allow him to cultivate were all thanks to Ji Yuanqing and the others. This was something that could be found out with a casual investigation. As for the last sentence, it made them feel even more guilty. After all, Ji Feiyu and his wife were running around outside, and they actually needed Ji Feiyu to use himself as the price to marry Mo Zhuling in exchange for their help. From this, it could be seen how much they disregarded the other party's family. If it weren't for today's ancestral hall meeting, other than family Ji's people, no other family would participate at all. It was likely that Ji Feiyu's words would cause an uproar among the crowd. Who would have thought that the background of the Ji family was so filthy and ugly? In the face of Ji Feiyu's words, everyone was inexplicably speechless. At this moment, Ji Yuanqing's voice rang out. "I will follow my son and be exterminated from the clan. From now on, our family Ji's direct descendants will have nothing to do with you. This family Ji, you can do whatever you want. Let's go." As he spoke, he pulled Ji Feiyu and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, Ji Miao Miao's voice sounded. "Wait, uncle, are you leaving just like that?" Ji Feiyu tarnished our family Ji's reputation and family values because of his love affair. Do you think that you can easily erase it by saying that you're willing to be expelled from the family and shirk your responsibility? Isn't this a little too optimistic? My father is benevolent, but I can't stand seeing you bully them like this. If you want to be expelled from the family, that's fine. Let out your blood and return your bloodline completely to the family Ji and we'll let you go. As she spoke, she suddenly walked out from Ji Feiyu's side and raised her head to look at Ji Feiyu and the others with a mocking expression. To be expelled from the family? They wanted to leave the family Ji so easily? How could that be possible? It was more likely that they would leave behind half their lives and all their strength. When that time came, they would lose their status as direct descendants, and without the family Ji and strength to protect them, how long could they survive outside? There were many people in Dongting region who wanted to hit them when they were down. Chapter 2963. When she spoke, Ji Yuanqing and Ji Feiyu's expressions changed. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice slowly rang out. Miss Miao Miao, your words are very strange. She smiled. You sound so confident, as if you went to the Star Wilderness with them and saw how Ji Feiyu's engagement was broken off. As soon as Luo Qingtong spoke, everyone in the main courtyard of the ancestral hall looked at her. Who are you? Ji Yuanqing didn't speak before, but when he saw Luo Qingtong coming in from the ancestral hall, he immediately frowned. The Ji family's ancestral hall was an important place. How could anyone casually enter? Are those people guarding outside all dead? As soon as he spoke, Ji Miao Miao sneered and said, Father, this is the Luo Xiaoqi that Qin Xiong and the others talked about. The woman who bewitched Ji Feiyu and caused him to break off the engagement, making our family Ji a laughingstock. As soon as she spoke, Ji Yuanqing and the family Ji elders frowned. Ji Feiyu's cold voice rang out at this moment. Shut up. Ji Miao Miao, I've told you many times. She has nothing to do with my engagement being broken off. This matter has been confirmed by Ji Feitong and Ji Fighting. Don't talk nonsense. As soon as he spoke, Ji Miao Miao immediately laughed. Ji Feiyu, don't try to explain yourself to her. If you really have nothing to do with her, why are you so angry? Do you think we're all blind? As soon as she spoke, Ji Feiyu immediately became angry. I don't want to talk to you anymore. As he spoke, he took a deep breath and turned to Ji Feitong and Ji Fighting. When you were at the border of the Dongting region, you made it very clear, didn't you? Between me and her, there really isn't any love between us. Mo Zhuling broke off the engagement with me not because of her. That's right. Ji Fighting had a smile on his face. He looked at Ji Feiyu and nodded with a smile. That's what eldest cousin said, but, as he said this, he suddenly chuckled and said, I don't know whether this is true or not. After all, the investigation results haven't come back yet. That was right. In fact, Ji Feiyu had always had this idea, which was to make Ji Feiyu unable to defend himself. So what if the other party's engagement was broken off because of Luo Qingtong? What was important was what they said. They say Ji Feiyu is, then he is. Ji Feiyu's face turned livid with anger as soon as Ji Fighting spoke. He pointed at Ji Fighting and said coldly, You were sure that I was telling the truth? Yes. Ji Fighting chuckled. I absolutely believe that what eldest cousin said is true. However, whether the elders believe it or not is not something I can decide. Ji Fighting was extremely scheming as he secretly changed the topic. At that time he did know that Ji Feiyu was telling the truth. However, after he said this, it became Ji Feiyu forcing him to believe that he was telling the truth. In fact, he didn't mean this. As soon as he said this, Ji Feiyu gritted his teeth. He finally knew that no matter what, Ji Fighting and the others would not let him and his father walk out of the family Ji unscathed. These people, they... Chapter 2964. Young Master Ji, are you sure you're telling the truth? Luo Qingtong looked at Ji Fighting with a smile. The latter looked back at her with a polite expression. I'm sure I'm telling the truth. I wonder what Miss Xiaoqi means by asking this? Although I admire Miss Xiaoqi's courage to love and hate, and her attitude of going back to the family Ji with my cousin to face reality. But what I see is what I hear is what I believe. Speaking against my will goes against my will. I'm sorry, but I can't do as Miss Xiaoqi wishes. Sui Yu Yen Yang, and the others' expressions changed immediately after Ji Fighting said this. This Ji Fighting is really shameless. He's obviously saying that Master said something to him in order to make him keep the secret. In other people's ears, it's as if Master once tempted him to help Ji Feiyu talk to her. Isn't this disgusting and despising Master? This Ji Fighting is as disgusting and hateful as his sister Ji Miao Miao. Yen Yang's eyes were red with anger as if they were about to spit fire. Sui Yu and the others were even more furious. They gritted their teeth and looked at Ji Fighting and the others. These people were just like Ji Miao Miao, trying every means to deal with their young master and Xiao Qi. Sui Yu and the others had no doubt that even if they brought back witnesses and evidence, Ji Fighting and the others would be able to turn black into white and ignore the evidence. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Sure enough, their young master couldn't escape this time. It was a pity that even Xiao Qi was implicated. Everyone was sad in their hearts. They naturally wanted to live and die with their young master. But Xiao Qi could have avoided it completely. She wanted to clarify the truth for her young master, but she didn't know that the family Ji people didn't want to hear any explanation at all. They only wanted to attack their young master. They were the ones who harmed her. Even if she could cure their young master's problem of not being able to cultivate, they should have tried their best to stop her from coming. After all, their young master hadn't completely improved his strength and hadn't completely solved his problem of not being able to cultivate. He wasn't strong enough to fight against the family Ji people. Even if the fact that he could cultivate was exposed, it wouldn't stop the family Ji people from attacking them. Instead, it would agitate Ji Yuankuan and the others, making them no longer care about etiquette, justice, integrity, and honor, to destroy the last hope of the family Ji's descendants. Everyone felt their hearts filled with grief and indignation. But in her heart, Ji Fighting and the others. She knew from the beginning that Ji Fighting and the others would have such plans and actions, so she was not in a hurry. After all, since she didn't stop Ji Fighting and the others from having such thoughts, it meant that she had enough ability to deal with it. At that time, let's see who would be the victim of their own cleverness. Master Yu, Master Ji Feiyu, your master. I wonder if Master Ji Feiyu dares to swear in front of you that you're telling the truth. Ji Feiyu and I didn't prove our innocence in front of you? Ji Fighting's eyes narrowed when he heard her words. He didn't know why, but he felt that the woman beside Ji Feiyu was a bit strange. Chapter 2965. If not for Ji Miao Miao's arrival, relieving him of the pressure and attracting everyone's attention. At that time, the doubts about him were enough to make people doubt his ability and character. Now this woman was speaking up against him. Did she have any way to prove her and Ji Feiyu's innocence? But how could that be possible? The family Ji was now under their control. Even if the final result was that Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu did not have any affair and that the annulment of the engagement had nothing to do with them, so what? As long as they insisted that it was not true, it would be useless no matter how much evidence they had. Make him swear? So what if he swore? He had said before that he did believe Ji Feiyu's words, but that did not mean that his words were necessarily true. Thinking of this, Ji Fighting immediately smiled and said, "Of course I can swear to God that I don't know whether this is true or not, but I personally want to believe cousin." But cousin doesn't have any evidence to prove his innocence. Isn't that so? How can we believe you just based on your side of the story? Especially when Miss Xiao Qi came all the way to the family Ji. It's hard for us and the elders to believe that you don't have an affair. As Ji Fighting said this, his words were completely watertight. He could become the invisible young master of the family Ji not only because of his ability. His scheming ability was also top-notch. At this moment, the elders of the family Ji nodded repeatedly. They were even more disgusted by Luo Qingtong's aggressiveness. She had clearly bewitched and lured Ji Fighting to speak up for her but failed. Now she was pressing him step by step. As the young master of the family Ji, Ji Fighting was naturally gentle, humble, and polite. Although he did not directly reject her out of politeness, he still adhered to his principles. He was determined not to be tempted by the other party to lie. This was really good. With that thought in mind, everyone admired Ji Fighting even more. This was how the young master of the family Ji should act and behave. Ji Fighting was becoming more and more outstanding. They were really lucky to be in charge of the family Ji. On the other hand, Ji Feiyu was not only a good-for-nothing, but he was also infatuated with this aggressive, shameless, and ambitious woman. The elders of the family Ji did not think that Luo Qingtong came back with Ji Feiyu to clarify her and Ji Feiyu's innocence. In their opinion, the other party clearly wanted to whitewash her and Luo Qingtong, then take the opportunity to become Ji's wife and become a member of the family Ji. To be so diligent, it was really shameful. A woman from a low-level 9-star domain could only use such a move, right? Luo Qingtong's disdainful eyes as the other elders of the family Ji. Everyone looked disgusted. Some of them even berated Luo Qingtong and the others and asked them to leave the family Ji immediately. This was not a place where they could behave atrociously and speak freely. They were not welcome here. As for Ji Feiyu's engagement being broken off, they would naturally pursue the matter with her after they dealt with Ji Feiyu and the others. Ji Miao Miao gloated and felt pleased when she saw the elder's anger. Chapter 2966. Luo Qingtong glanced at her but didn't say anything. Instead, she looked at the family Ji elders and said, "I can prove that Ji Feiyu is innocent. However, I want Ji Fighting to make a new oath. When we were at the edge of the Dongting region, we once proposed to prove our innocence. At that time it was very convenient to travel between the Dongting region and the Star Wilderness region, but Ji Fighting refused. He even said that he absolutely trusted us. Now he's saying that it's just a one-sided story. I want to know what's his motive. If Ji Fighting dares to swear that when he said that, he had no selfish motives or calculations, I'll admit that I have an affair with Ji Feiyu. If you want to kill me or cut me up, it's up to the family Ji." As for Ji Feiyu and the others, Luo Qingtong looked at Ji Feiyu. The latter didn't say anything. He just said with a resolute and decisive expression, "I'll also be at the disposal of the family. It's up to you to extract my meridians and let my blood out, cut my flesh and return my bones." As soon as she said that, everyone's eyes immediately focused on Ji Fighting. The latter frowned slightly as he looked at Luo Qingtong. He felt that this woman was indeed very difficult to deal with. Why did she always choose to open her mouth at the most crucial moment? Usually, when others encountered such a trap, they would only feel that it was impossible to defend themselves. However, the other party quickly found the most crucial point from his words. Every time she opened her mouth, she killed his soldiers. Originally, if Luo Qingtong opened her mouth from somewhere else, no matter what she said, Ji Fighting would have a corresponding explanation to ensure that his words sounded flawless on the surface. However, every word and sentence pointed directly to the fact that Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu did indeed have an affair. At that time he was absolutely not afraid to confront Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu. However, at this time Luo Qingtong avoided other points and only focused on whether he had an ulterior motive. Ji Fighting really didn't dare to say that he didn't. Immediately, his face darkened. Lady Shaoqi is really good at reading people's minds. He looked at Luo Qingtong and said indifferently, "Everyone has their own selfish motives. Eldest cousin and I belong to two different branches, although we are not enemies. But if you say that there is no selfishness between us, then I really can't do it." When he said that, Luo Qingtong immediately smiled. This Ji Fighting was quite interesting. This move of retreating in order to advance was well used. First he said that everyone had selfish motives. Then he said that he had selfish motives, but he didn't want to hurt Ji Feiyu. In this way he refuted Luo Qingtong's words that made him swear. She also made everyone think that Luo Qingtong was scheming and deliberately set up a language trap to make Ji Fighting swear to frame him. Sure enough, after hearing Ji Fighting's words, the family Ji's elders looked at Luo Qingtong with even more disgust. This woman is really scheming and vicious. I can guarantee that she definitely got close to Ji Feiyu on purpose so that Mo Zhuling would break off the engagement and she could climb up the social ladder. Look at her aura, she's only at the Sage Master realm. She's simply trash. Isn't that right? She's probably at the bottom of the 9-star domain. I really don't know which small family she's from. When she saw that Ji Feiyu and Mo Zhuling were engaged and that he couldn't cultivate, she took the opportunity to climb up the social ladder. Chapter 2967. Everyone was talking about it. Yin Yang's face was red with anger as she listened. How shameless were these people? Did their master want to climb up the social ladder because of their family Ji's status and strength? They would be scared to death if they knew Yi Qianxian's background. Why would their master need to climb up the social ladder of a small 8-star region? Did these family Ji people have to be so arrogant? Moreover, his master's current strength was clearly because something unexpected happened, which was why it dropped to the sacred expert level. When their master's strength was so great, these family Ji people couldn't even catch up. Who else could be like their master, who broke through to the level of a sage master when she was only a 14-year-old martial master? Not to mention the family Ji disciples from the 8-star region, even the disciples from the 7-star and 6-star regions couldn't catch up to their master's level of strength. These family Ji people felt so good about themselves. Who gave them the confidence to diss their master like this? I'm so angry. Yin Yang was so angry that her hands were shaking. Her face was red and her eyes were spitting fire. Chu Tianyi, listen to me. I don't care why you approached me and wanted to be with me. As long as you promise that you and the Chu family will respect our master, listen to her orders, and be her support, I will be with you. Otherwise, get out of my sight now and don't come near me again. Yin Yang was shaking with anger because of the family Ji. In the past, Luo Qingtong had protected her and Chu Lingfeng through so many hardships and dangers. Now, the family Ji people were dissing her like this. Luo Qingtong, but she couldn't do anything about it. She didn't want to continue like this. Who said that her master was only a young girl from a low-level 9-star region with no strength and influence? Who said that she could only climb up the social ladder of the family Ji? In the future she would be her master's support. She would be her master's stepping stone. As long as her mistress was willing, she could kneel at her mistress's feet at any time and allow her to step on her and rise to the top. At that time, she would like to see who would dare to scold Luo Qingtong and say that she had no strength and influence. Yin Yang's eyes turned red while Chu Tianyi's eyes brightened. He didn't expect such a good thing to happen when he followed Luo Qingtong here. For the sake of Luo Qingtong, Yin Yang was actually willing to be with him. Although this kind of promise was completely to give Luo Qingtong a certain weight and support, and didn't really mean that she had forgiven him. However, it was still better than Yin Yang, who had always rejected him and ignored him. Chu Tianyi had been looking for an opportunity to help Luo Qingtong. What should he do if Yin Yang ignored him after he finished helping her? His identity had been exposed and Yin Yang had suffered too much. She was not willing to open her heart and let him get close to her. No matter how much he did, she was always unwilling to believe him, and she didn't dare to believe him. But now, with Yin Yang's words, he could always be with her. Chu Tianyi dared to guarantee that as long as he had the chance to stay by Yin Yang's side, she would be moved by him sooner or later. Because he wasn't afraid that Yin Yang didn't know his true feelings. He was only afraid that Yin Yang wouldn't even give him a chance to express his true feelings. At that time he would really have no other choice. With this thought, he agreed to Yin Yang's words without hesitation. As for what the Chu family would think and whether they were willing to accept the fact that a young girl had surrendered to a 9-star region, he was too lazy to care. Chapter 2968. While Yin Yang and Chu Tianyi were whispering to each other, Luo Qingtong remained calm and unaffected by the family Ji's words. They were just a bunch of fools who were being played by Ji fighting. What was there to be concerned about? Luo Qingtong did not care about them at all. She looked at Ji fighting and smiled. Young Master Ji, you really know how to change the topic. I'm asking if you have any intention of scheming against Ji Feiyu. But you said that everyone has selfish motives. Although that's true, having selfish motives and having the intention to harm others are two different things. But I don't blame you if you don't dare to swear. After all, you and Ji Feiyu are enemies. The position of young master that you have should have belonged to him. You don't like him and want to scheme against him. It's normal for you to make him suffer or even die. But, at this point, Luo Qingtong's smile deepened and became colder. If that's the case, then young Master Ji shouldn't pretend to be so dignified and righteous. Because your hypocritical and pretentious face makes me feel nauseous and disgusted. As soon as she spoke, Ji Fighting's expression froze. Then he looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold and malicious gaze. The other party's words hit the nail on the head. Every single one of her words hit him where it hurt. But so what if that was the case? Unless she could prove her and Ji Feiyu's innocence in this family Ji, there was no way she could turn the tables. Miss Shaoqi. Ji Fighting's expression was cold and malicious. He looked at Luo Qingtong and said softly with an icy gaze, "Your clever mouth is really sharp. But if you have the time to study my intentions, why don't you prove your and Ji Feiyu's innocence first? Otherwise, who knows if you and Ji Feiyu were prepared to prove your innocence? No matter what my intentions were, I did it for the good of the family Ji. But what about the two of you?" As he spoke, he looked disdainfully at Luo Qingtong and said with extreme contempt and disdain, "Of the two of you, one of you is shameless and hooked up with someone who is engaged. The other disregarded the engagement, the family, and has no sense of responsibility or family interests. Even if the two of you swear, why should I believe what you said?" At this point, Ji Fighting finally tore off his mask. He was too lazy to pretend to be humble and polite and gentle. So what if he schemed against Ji Feiyu and Luo Qingtong? He deliberately did not give them a chance to prove their innocence. But so what? Even if they proved it at that time, Ji Fighting could refute it by saying that they came prepared. In short, he was not going to let Ji Feiyu and the others walk out of the family Ji safely today. But now Luo Xiaoqi had to be included. He wanted to see how this sharp-tongued and quick-witted girl would break out of this deadlock. Everyone was on their side. How could Luo Qingtong prove her innocence? She would not be able to walk out of the family Ji today. Ji Fighting snorted coldly and waved his hand, ordering people to close the door of the main courtyard of the ancestral hall. Chapter 2969. Ji Feiyu's pupils constricted. He rushed to Luo Qingtong's side and stood in front of her. Ji Fighting, don't go too far. As you wish. Let her go immediately. Ji Feiyu regretted it. He should not have agreed to let Luo Qingtong come. Who would have thought that Ji Fighting and the others would be so impatient? Ji Feiyu originally thought that since his blood curse was beneficial to Luo Qingtong, it would be fine for her to come along. At most, he would announce that he could cultivate and gain the support of the elders. At that time, Ji Fighting and the others might not be able to do anything to them. However, no one expected that Ji Fighting and the others would immediately head to Star Alliance to bring him back after sending the news to Star Alliance. In the ancestral hall, they had already prepared a battle array, not giving him a chance to catch his breath at all. They swore to beat him to the bottom of the valley. That's right. Ji Fighting and the others had been in charge of the family Ji for some time. To them, the existence of the direct descendants of the family Ji was like a thorn in their throats. They would not be happy if they did not get rid of it. How could they not make good use of such a good opportunity given to them? This confrontation in the ancestral hall was not only aimed at him, but also at the entire direct descendants of the family Ji. It was no wonder that he called his father and mother back. If not for the fact that his mother's family was not weaker than the family Ji and was even more tyrannical, Ji Fighting and the others would not even have to confront him in the ancestral hall and directly convict him of the crime. Ji Feiyu's eyes were filled with sorrow and mockery as he thought of this. He looked at Ji Fighting and the others and said in a low voice, "I'm willing to plead guilty. Let her go." Ji Feiyu already knew that Ji Fighting and the others had come prepared and would not allow them to defend themselves. He was not going to waste his breath on them. He could let Ji Fighting and the others deal with him. They could cut his meridians and bleed him. They could even cut his flesh and return his bones. As long as they let Luo Qingtong go. He did not want her to be implicated by him. He was willing to listen to them. As Ji Feiyu's voice rang out, Sueyu and the others' sorrowful cries could also be heard. "Young master." Their hearts were filled with grief and they almost rushed towards Ji Feiyu and the others without a care in the world. However, they were restrained by the guards who waved their hands. Ji Miao Miao sneered coldly. "Ji Feiyu, it's too late for you to say that. When I asked you to plead guilty, didn't you say that you were innocent? What? Now that you can't prove it, you want to sacrifice yourself and let this be *tch go? You're so infatuated. It's a pity that since she came to our family Ji today, she can forget about leaving. Our family Ji is not a place where any Tom, Dick or Harry can come and go as they please. Not to mention, this woman bewitched you and caused Mo Zhuling to break off the engagement. This is a great humiliation. Our family Ji will never let her off." Ji Feiyu's expression was smug and cold as she said this. At this moment, Yen Yang and Chu Tianyi, who were standing behind Luo Qingtong, were ready to make their move. Especially Chu Tianyi. After getting Yen Yang's promise to be with him, he was full of energy. He was only waiting for Luo Qingtong to give the order and he would immediately massacre the family Ji. Chapter 2970. Just as he was about to make a move, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out faintly. "Miss Ji, you're probably deaf. I've already said that I can prove my innocence with Ji Feiyu. You probably think I'm joking? Ji Feiyu is standing in front of me because he's afraid that I'll embarrass you and make a move on me in anger. What? Why are you so impatient when you see it?" As she spoke, she placed her hand on Ji Feiyu's sleeve and comforted him by holding his wrist through his sleeve, telling him not to be anxious. Then Luo Qingtong stepped forward and said to Qin Xiong and the others behind Ji Fighting, "Qin Xiong, Commander Qin. It said that the news of my affair with Ji Feiyu and his annulment came from you. Can you come out and confront me? Let's confront. Who's afraid of you?" Qin Xiong and the others felt a little guilty. However, they thought that Luo Qingtong had no evidence to prove that she had nothing to do with Ji Feiyu, and Ji Fighting and the others were obviously biased towards them. No matter whether they were telling the truth or not, as long as they insisted that Luo Qingtong had something to do with Ji Feiyu and the others couldn't do anything to them. Luo Xiaoqi, this idiot, actually wanted to confront them. Did she think that she wasn't dying fast enough? Thinking of this, Qin Xiong and the others' guilty conscience immediately disappeared. Instead, they became inexplicably confident. They stood out from behind Ji Fighting and the others and swore that there was indeed some kind of secret relationship between Luo Qingtong and Ji Feiyu. That was why Ji Feiyu repeatedly defended Luo Qingtong. During the proposal banquet, Mo Zhuling annulled the engagement. Who could prove that it had nothing to do with the affair between them? The group said so cunningly. Every word was a trap, avoiding the most important point. This made people suddenly think that Luo Qingtong was completely promiscuous, shameless, and wantonly seducing Luo Qingtong. They originally wanted to deal with Luo Qingtong and get rid of her for the family Ji, but in the end they were stopped by Ji Feiyu. Otherwise, the family Ji wouldn't have suffered such a great loss. The group said so and suddenly they burst into tears. Not only did they slander Luo Qingtong, but they also expressed their loyalty to Ji and the others. As they spoke, the family Ji's elders all glared at Luo Qingtong. Luo Xiaoqi, what do you have to say? As they spoke, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. She said to the family Ji's people, "This is your family Ji's territory. How can I believe that they are speaking from the bottom of their hearts and not being coerced by your family Ji's people? After all, you can put on such a show in order to deal with the direct descendants of the family Ji. It's hard for me not to suspect that you did something to them to make them angry but not dare to say anything. In this case, even if I can prove my innocence, what can I do? Everything is still up to your family Ji, isn't it?" Ji Miao Miao sneered. This Luo Xiaoqi wasn't too stupid. She knew that everything was up to the family Ji. But she actually thought that Qin Xiong and the others were coerced by them, so they said that. This was simply ridiculous. But since she thought so and wanted to prove her innocence through Qin Xiong and the others, then she would fulfill her wish. After all, it was rare to see people who took the initiative to court death. Chapter 2971. With that thought in mind, Ji Miao Miao turned to Luo Qingtong and asked, "What do you want? Do you want them to go outside the family Ji and tell everyone about the affair between you and Ji Feiyu?" "I don't mind. I'm just afraid that you won't dare." As she said this, she looked at Ji Feiyu and the others with contempt and disdain. The latter and the others did not hesitate at all. "I dare. I'll listen to little 7. There was no hesitation on Ji Feiyu's face. He trusted Luo Qingtong completely. Although it was obvious that this was a dead end. As long as Luo Qingtong said that she could do it, he would believe her without hesitation. Ji Yuanqing and Li Shuyi did not hesitate at all. They would always put their son first. Moreover, things had already come to this point. Whether they agreed or not, it would not affect the family Ji's people to deal with them. Since that was the case, what was there to care about? When they agreed, Ji Fighting's brows furrowed. He looked at Ji Miao Miao and said disapprovingly, "Miao Miao?" Just as he spoke, before he could say anything, Luo Qingtong's chuckling voice was heard. "What's wrong? Young Master Ji, are you feeling guilty? It seems that I don't need to prove my innocence. Because you don't dare to let them leave the family Ji's territory to publicize the affair between Ji Feiyu and me. If that's the case, how will you convict us?" Luo Qingtong said this and said to Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing, "Let's go, Feiyu, Uncle Ji. Young Master Ji has already proven our innocence. We don't need to do anything more." As she said this, she immediately prepared to leave the family Ji's ancestral hall with Ji Feiyu, Ji Yuanqing, and the others. Hearing this, Ji Fighting's frown deepened instantly. He could not help but wonder if Luo Qingtong was deliberately provoking Ji Miao Miao to do the opposite and target him. The purpose was to make him suspicious so that he could stop this from happening. In this way, Luo Qingtong and the others would be able to leave calmly? As Ji Fighting thought this, his face suddenly froze. At this moment, Ji Miao Miao's angry voice rang out. "Luo, stop right there. Who says we're guilty and we don't dare to let them out?" As she said this, she immediately gritted her teeth and lowered her head. She whispered to Ji Fighting, "Big brother, don't be indecisive. This woman is very cunning. Just now, she used her schemes to make us suffer a few big losses. Are you really going to let Ji Feiyu and the others off? This is a rare opportunity's good opportunity. We can catch Uncle and the others in one go. Don't tell me you're out of your mind after scheming every day." As soon as she said this, Ji Fighting's conflicted expression immediately became even more serious. At this moment, Ji Yuanqing spoke. "Let her prove her innocence." As he said this, he immediately looked at Ji Yuanqing with a smile and said, "Cousin, you know that I definitely don't want to wrongly accuse you. It's just that this matter concerns the family Ji's reputation in the future. I have to take it seriously. Since this woman says that she can prove her innocence with Feiyu, then I'll listen to her. However, if there's really no way to prove their innocence in the end, then cousin, don't blame us for offending you then. As for the gossip of others, I don't take it to heart." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.